Close the doors of your mind from all carnal will, all carnal thought, all emotions, all desires, all fears, all laziness, all doubt, all hatred, all envy, all strife, all complaining, all dissension, all rivalries, all pride, all arrogance within oneself, and all jealousy and envy that shortens your life, and all jealousy and envy that make you the green-eyed monster. All jealousy and envy that turns you into the very person that will kill Yahushua Mashiach. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day of warning. Today is the day that Yahushua has given to us, who given all power and authority on Shamayim in the earth as a Shabath. Knowing through Yahuwah Elohim, who sits in the highest Shamayim on his throne, when he sends his son Yahushua back to the earth, it will not to be dealing with to redeem man from sin, but to execute judgment on all those who have went against his word, his debar, and went against all the behaviors that he came to destroy. So today we acknowledge the one who made all the horror of the earth, all in the horror of the earth, all the rivers and streams of the earth, whether on the surface of the earth, under the earth, or the water that even flows from the throne of Yahuwah Elohim, the one who gives life and understanding to all creatures and all beings, both male and female, in the earth, allows them to procreate and be fruitful and multiply and to populate the earth, so everyone can see what an animal looks like, what a bird looks like, to see what a behemoth and other creatures look like. In order for you to see that, they had to procreate and had to come together to becoming one in order for you to see an unclean and a clean animal. For you to even see all the fishes in the sea that jump out of the way and the whales, they had to procreate and create something for you to see. Just like it is for us, you have to create something for Yahuwah to see. So as we move forward in kindness, we move forward in ahab, we move forward in joy and peace, patience, faithfulness, gentleness and self-control. For we look at ourselves in that inward man, and that divine nature, that divine being that needs to birth and that needs to give life to what's inside, that fruit that Yahuwah wants to see. And you must produce it in the earth. So as we move forward in the understanding and the being the earth of Yahuwah Elohim, who sits in the highest Shamayim. Right, so this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 1. Mashali, Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse 1. Mashali, Proverbs, Proverbs, chapter 15 and verse 1. Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 1. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath, right? So he said a soft answer. So that means when somebody asks you a question, the way you answer will make that person not be angry, or he say get wrath, right? To have any type of emotional response if it's a soft-spoken answer, right? So we look at all these things. He say, I don't want to be questioned. He said, when you're questioned, how you respond is the determination on how that person will respond to you. But a harsh word stirs up anger, right? This is the whole point. A harsh answer stirs up anger. Why? Because when somebody asks you a question or requests something, and then you give harsh words back, it only makes you angry. And by doing so, what does it create? It creates something inside of a human being, right? It creates something inside of a human being. And that is something that you don't want, right? Verse 2 says, the tongue of the wise commends knowledge, right? The tongue of the wise. If this be not Hamadah, it's going to commend you knowledge. But the mouth of fools pours out folly, right? They're going to talk about what you say. Right? They're going to talk about what you said, and they're not going to respect what you say. Right? So this is the book of Philippians, chapter 2, verse 1. The book of Philippians, chapter 2, verse 1. Philippians, chapter 2, verse 1. So if there is any encouragement in Mashiach, any comfort from love, any participation in the Ruach, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord of one mind. Why? Because when somebody asks you something, the type of response you get is going to create anger. So in order for you to not create that anger and that wrath, because he said, who's the creation of the anger and the wrath? The person who answered the wrong way. And that's the creation of, that's the actual starting point of it. right? And it says right here, do nothing from selfish ambitions or conceit. That means nothing. Anything you do, if it's any type of selfishness in it, don't do it. Why? It says, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each one of you look not only on his own interests, because everybody looking at everybody, what they're going to get out of it. What they're going to get out of it. By investing all this time, he said, what you going to get out of it? But also on the interests of others. Why? Because if you don't think about the interests of somebody else, you'll be a selfish human being. You say, I'm not going to think about that person when I answer that person that rough way and I do that to him. I'm not going to do that when I answer that woman that rough way and I do that to her. What's going to happen? You're going to create anger and wrath, and then what? You're going to create it. And for some people, it's easy for them to get over. So for some others, it's not. It becomes a continual pattern. Because there are some people are strong in these areas, and some people aren't. Some people grew up in rough neighborhoods. Some people didn't. Some people grew up with a hard heart, he said, in a rough life. Some people didn't. But being of the same mind, let's give soft answers. Soft answers don't allow none of these things to rise up. Right? And it says, let each one of you not look on his own interests, but on the interests of others, having this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Mashiach Yahusha, who though he was in the form of Elohim, did not count equality with Elohim a thing to be grasped. He said, why would he, even Yahusha on the earth? It's like, man, to be like Yahuwah Elohim, he's like, man. He's like, Father, I'm content on being under you. Right? So you look at Yahuwah Elohim, he said he was content on being under Yahuwah. But you know, you have today, some people say, I'm greater than Yahuwah. But he said, no, I'm content. I'm content to be under my Father. What my Abba tell me to do, what the Abba tell me to do, that's what I do. And he said he's content with it. And get what it says. Verse 6, it says, who though he was in the form of Elohim, right? He was an Elohim, because it's not written in your Torah, said you were Elohim according to Yukodan chapter 9. Did he not judge in the midst of the Elohims according to Psalms 82? Right? He does. And he do it somewhere. It says, did he not count equality with Elohim a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself? He emptied himself by taking on the form of a servant. So you know how when you're a servant, I mean, when you're a servant, you always at a abad, which is spelled with an ayin, because we know abad is spelled with an ayin. Just like abri, Hebrew, is spelled with an ayin. And you have to see it. And by seeing it, then you'll understand what it means to be a servant, abad. Right? Because it's all a part of it. But it says right here, did not count equality with Elohim, the thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking on the form of a bod, being in the likeness of men. Who was that? Adam. Remember Adam? He was made in the image and likeness. And he put him in the gun to be a bod and shamar and keep it. He put him in there to be a servant, a bod. And he made him a servant. And he was supposed to keep it, shamar. And guess what he did? And he did it unto death of the cross. It says, and being found in human form, he humbled himself, becoming obedient to the point of death, which means he did it all the way till he died. He did it all the way till he died. Therefore, Elohim has highly exalted him. And he said, I want to be exalted. I want to be highly exalted. You know how I say highly? I want to be highly exalted. He said, I want to ride upon the high places, upon the wings of the wind, and he's going to feed me with his akla, a call. He's going to give us his heritage. I want to do that. So you want to be highly exalted. You want to abraku kanaf halat ruach. You want to be in the first resurrection. You know, the first resurrection when you get up from the grave. You want to be able to go and meet him in the air, like you know how people say they're going to do. You got to be a abad. You got to shamar and keep what Yahuwah said. It says, therefore, Elohim has highly exalted him and bestowed upon him a name that's above every name. Right? He did. This is Bereshit chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1, verse 25. Genesis chapter 1, Bereshit chapter 1, verse 26. Then Elohim said, Yahuwah Elohim said, the Elohim said, let us make man in our image and likeness, Damus Salam. Let them have dominion over the God. That's the people those were animals who had the male and female had to come together and create in order for you to see them in the ocean, in the young. Over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky, those are the off that had to procreate and becoming one and create another bird so you can have multiplying all around the world so you can see it. Let them have the fish and the birds of Shamaim, and over the livestock, those are all the behemoth, right? The ox, the cow, the donkey, right? The sheep, the goat, all the things that what? The elephant, all these things that you see. Guess what happened? They had to co-create and two becoming one so you can see them everywhere. The lion, all these things that you see. And over the livestock and over all the earth and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. You see how many insectoids there are? They be procreating all the time. So you can know what a creeping thing is. So over here, in this one country, you know what a creeping thing is. And then you go to a whole other country, you see another creeping thing. So you have no excuse. And guess what happens? And he said, so Elohim created Adam in his own image. That's what Yahushua was. He took on the form of a servant. He was in his likeness. And in the image of Yahuwah, Elohim, he created him, both male and female. Male and female. Zakar Nakabah, he created them. He did that. So why would you say you anything different? He took on the form of a servant. But when you start giving off these rough answers, people say these rough answers, you have now lost something within yourself. You creating anger and wrath. He say, why? Because when Yahuwah asks you something, you start to give off some answers, and he be like, why'd you answer me that way? And then you become the creator of anger and wrath, right? So this is the book of Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 2, verse 10. Same thing. Actually, go to verse 2 and 15. It says, Then Yahuwah Elohim took the Adam and put him in the garden, the Gan of Eden. Because, the garden, the Eden, the word for Eden is spelled with an onion too. Abad is spelled with an onion. The garden is spelled, Eden is spelled with an onion. Abri is spelled with an onion. And then he told him to do what? To work it and to keep it. To Abad and Shamar. The word for work it is Abad. To work it and keep it. And you have to see it. But what happens, right? This is the book of Bereshit, chapter 3, verse 18. Actually, go to verse... let's go to verse 8, 3 and 8. Bereshit 3 and 8. We're going to get out of here. Bereshit 3 and 8. And they heard the sound of Yahuwah walking in the Gan, walking in the Eden in the cool of the day. Right? He said he heard it walking in Eden. It means they heard it. How you say, does not the ear taste the bar as the mouth does the food? Which means they heard it. It went into their body. Just like how the sound and vibration goes into your ear, whether in your left ear, a Malaky, or your right ear, Yahuwah, and it goes into your mind, which is your body, and then guess what it does? You start to perceive and understand what's getting ready to happen. And guess what happened? And it said, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah. He said, why would you hide yourself? Why would you hide yourself from the presence of Yahuwah on Shabbat? You were like, why they hide themselves from the Shabbat? Because they already know. That's the only reason they hide themselves, right? It says what? And it says, hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah, Elohim, among the trees of the Gan. Why? Trees of Eden, because the trees are strong. Right? Hid themselves amongst the trees. Because there's trees in the Eden. Not man today, they log and cut down every single tree on the earth. Destroy everything. All the giant trees that are yielding fruit. One grape produced one bottle of wine, right? They done destroyed all of that. Took all the gold out of the rivers and the silver out of the ground. None of this minerals getting inside of the actual plants anymore. None of these things, some places where they don't excavate, that's why you see the trees so green. But in actuality, you look at all these attributes of these things. And it says what? And they heard, and they said, and hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim among the trees of the garden. But Yahuwah Elohim called to Adam and said to him, where are you? So he asked him a question. So what type of answer do you think he should give back? You think he should give back some words that's going to cause wrath? You're going to usually give back a soft answer, right? Because if you give back anything else, he's going to get angry. He said, where are you? What you talking about? What are you asking me a question for? What are you worried about where I'm at for? You think he would, if you'd have said that, what do you think would happen to him? It wouldn't have been, all this would have been over with. Right? It's the same thing with a parent in a home. Right? Same thing with a parent in a home, or a mother with a child, or a father with a son, or a son with a daughter, or a father with a daughter, or a husband with a wife, or an older person with a younger person. It's the very same thing. And it says, and he said, I heard the sound. He says, where are you? And he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden in Eden, and I was afraid. Right? He ain't lying. When you hear Yahuwah's the bar, do you get afraid? He ain't lying. He was scared. Adam ain't lying. You know what happened? You know what people do? When people ask you a question, you know what you do? You lie. And then by lying, you know what that does? It makes somebody angry. But Adam didn't lie. He didn't lie. He heard the sound. They hid themselves. He said, I hid myself. I was afraid. I'm not lying. Right? All that's a part of it. But if you start to lie, then guess what happens? Then it's like a person getting interrogated or get asked a question. You start lying, and guess what happens? You get angry. Oh, man, I'm angry. I'm even more angry. The soft answer with truth in it turns away wrath. You won't create no anger and no wrath. There won't be no anger and wrath. Everybody just tell the truth. When somebody asks a question. And he said, because I was afraid, because I was naked and hid myself. So he gave him extra. He's like, because I was naked. I was afraid. And I hid myself. I was in fear of you, and I'm naked. I'm afraid, right? He was just spilling his whole heart. He was confessing his whole heart, because that's all he knew. He didn't know a whole bunch of other stuff. How much other stuff he knew? And guess what happened? And he said, who told you that you were naked? Who told you about that? Who told you about you were naked and you were flesh? Who told you about flesh? Who told you about that? Have you eaten from the tree which I command you not to eat? He said, who told you that? So then you ask yourself, how many things you've been told from the time you've been born up until now that cause you to lie? How many things you've done in your life from the time you've been born up until now to present that cause you to give not a soft answer? That's all he wants to know. How many things that's been told to you that cause you to not be in the state that he was pleased with? And that's the whole point. Right? He told Timothy, he said, pay attention to the teaching. You both say yourself and them that hear you. So therefore, what is he saying? And he says right here, he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that which I commanded you not to eat? So that's the only reason, because people don't want you to know where you learned that from. They don't want you to know that. It's just like you say, where do you learn that from? And you know what happens after that? When you get stuff that nobody know about, you know what happens? It creates something inside of you. It turns you into somebody. It does. It turns you into somebody when people don't know what you're doing, where you're learning stuff from. And he says, the man said, the woman you gave to be with me, she gave me the fruit of the tree and I ate. He said, the woman you gave me, she gave me from the tree and I ate. He's like, you know who talking? Because it's always going to be on the man. It's going to be on Adam. Because I made you Adam, and guess what? I made her from a little bit of you. And he's just asking him questions. And Adam is just pouring out his heart to you. He's like, man, look at here. Listen, all that happened. He's just pouring it all out. He ain't got nothing else. I'm pouring it all out. He's like, I'm throwing it out here. And you know what he doing? He just confessing everything. And I'm sure the woman like, man, why you talking? And serpent like, man, he talking. Why he saying that? And the man said, the woman you gave me to be with me, she gave me of the fruit of the tree and I ate. Then Yahuwah said, so you think Yahuwah's like, man, Adam, you a liar. You think Yahushua Mashiach, you think Adam, you think he in the garden like, Adam, you a liar. Why are you lying to me? Why he ain't say that to him? Because he know he was telling the truth. Then Yahuwah Elohim said to the woman, what is this that you have done? Then he started asking you a question. He said, so what type of answer you think you should give back? He said, what type of answer do you think you should give back? He said, no, I don't want to give an answer back. I'm going to remain silent. You're going to remain silent in the midst of Yahuwah? You ain't remaining silent. Yahuwah is already knowing what our heart is. He's like, so what did you do? I'm going to remain silent like Yahushua. That makes sense. And he says right here, then Yahuwah Elohim said to the woman, what is this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. Did she lie? No, she ain't lied. She didn't lie. Because you know a soft answer turn away wrath and anger. She didn't lie. It's the truth. That's what happened to her. She didn't lie. She ain't kazab. She ain't shakir. So when we do this and somebody asks you a question and we kazab and shakir, what do you think we're creating in our life? You think that's a soft answer? You think that's going to turn away wrath and anger? Not only from the person you're lying to, which is Yahuwah Elohim, but also what do you think is going to happen to you? If you lie to somebody else in your household, in your family, or people, your older person, what do you think happens? What do you think it creates? It creates wrath and anger from Yahuwah on your life. That's what it does. And you know what it says. Then the Yahuwah Elohim said to the woman, what is this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. See, he was telling the truth then. And guess what? Yahuwah said to the serpent, because you have done this, notice how one thing happened. Notice he ain't questioning Nakash. He didn't question Nakash. What's the point of questioning Nakash? His whole life and work is to devour. Why are you going to question Nakash? That's what Nakash is made to do. That's what he made to do. He told Adam to work the garden, abide, and keep it. Shamar. The serpent was there he's more crafty than any other beast of the field Yahuwah made. He already was a Nakash, a deceiver. So he was only doing what he was supposed to do. So why would he be like, Nakash, what did you do? He's like, I don't need to ask you what I need to do. I don't even need to do anything. I already know who you are. And Yahuwah says to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. He said, man, you're gonna be underneath the beasts of the field. You're gonna be underneath the animals, the beasts you're gonna be made Lord in an animal. And it says, on your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. He said, that's what you're gonna eat. And amazingly, what did he take? What did he mean by that? All right, so this is the book of Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, chapter 14, verse 1. Yirmiyahu chapter 14, verse 1. And the word of Yahuwah that came to Yirmiyahu concerning the drought in Yehuda Yehuda mourns and her gates languish. Her people lament on the ground. He said they black to the ground. They say they black to the ground. He said they black to the ground. Why? They insist on. He said you're gonna eat. He said you're gonna eat that for all the days of your life. For what? For being what you did. For doing what you did. You know what they're gonna say? I didn't do anything. Yahuwah's like, I already made you to do I made you to be that person. I made you to be that person. He said, I made you to be Kadar, right? That word for black. Right? He said, I made them black to the ground. I made you be dark clothing and sackcloth and ashes. That's what he said. That's what I made you to do. He said, ain't no more point in lying, right? No more point in lying. This is Yirmiyahu 14:1. 14:3. Her nobles send their servants, Yirmiyahu 14:3. Actually, it says verse 2. It says, Yehuda mourns and her gates languish. Her people lament to the ground. The cry of Jerusalem goes up. Her nobles send their servants for water. They come to the cisterns and find no water. They return with their vessels empty. They are ashamed and confounded and cover their heads. He's like, this is going back to Genesis, Bereshit. Actually, going back to Proverbs 15. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. It says what? A soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouth of fools pours out folly. He said, pour out folly. But guess what? The eyes of Yahuwah is in every place. And he said, so how do you know? How do you think he already knew? So he said, I don't know. Yahuwah doesn't know. He doesn't know my heart. The eyes of Yahuwah are in every place. So you think he wasn't in Aydah? You think he ain't in you searching you right now? You know how I say search and seizure. He got a warrant for your arrest. What you gonna do? Run from him? Why are you hiding yourself? You know, Adam was like being chased from the authorities, and then he came back out. He's like, I'm gonna give myself up. That's all he did. He gave himself up. He gave himself up. And get what it says? Because one day you're gonna have to do that. How do you know that? How do we know one day you're gonna have to do that? You're gonna have to do it one day. You're gonna have to give yourself up one day. Because it's either one thing, it's either that or do this, right? This is Revelations Hazum chapter 6, verse 15. Revelations Hazum chapter 6, verse 15. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and every slave and free, as both righteous and wicked, hid themselves in caves among the rocks and mountains. He said, why are you hiding yourself? We heard the sound of you coming to the earth. Because his voice shakes the earth. Just how we talk about. His voice shakes the earth. The Shama'ims and the earth, signifying those things that's going to be removed. Calling to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who's seated on the throne. He's saying, they talking to the rocks. You know how it talks about, you have a muna, like a grain of a mustard seed. You say to this mountain, be thou removed and be cast into the sea. They talking to the rocks. Fall on us, please. Why? Because you knew. You knew and you ain't repent. You knew and you lied and say, I didn't do nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. But the eyes of Yahuwah in every place. And get what it says. Fall on us and hide us from him who sits on the face of the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb. A soft answer turn away wrath. But you know what happened. You know what we do. It turns away anger. And you know what happens? It says, for the wrath of the Lamb of Yahusha is come. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who can stand? He said, what's the point of standing? You're going to be black to the ground, sackcloth and ashes, because there's no point in standing. There's no point. What you going to stand up for? Why? Right, this is Bereshit chapter 1, and this is plain English, right? Now if you say, I'm going to speak to you in English, right? And going back to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. Bereshit Genesis chapter 3, verse 18. Actually, going back to going back to verse 10, 3 and 10. Actually let's go down. Going back to verse 14. Genesis 1:14. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the serpent, Nakash, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. Right? Because Nakash gonna be able to produce children. He's gonna be able to produce children. And Kawul is gonna be able to produce children. You know, her name means life giver. Nakash means deceiver. So you got the deceivers versus the life givers. How you say? Deceivers, Nakash, deceivers versus the life givers. And you could tell who are the life givers and who are the deceivers. Why would he say that? And he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Why? He said, you're going to bruise your head, and he's going to bruise your heel. Why? Because he's going to be a servant to you. And he said, when you speak to the boy, you're going to mess up his mind. Ooh, that deceiver can't take it. He's going to have no choice but to be a servant. He's going to have to hit the ground. Matter of fact, he's going to have to go right back to the dust where he was. You're going to be black to the ground, sackcloth and ashes. Rocks following us. Who can stand? He said, you ain't going to be able to stand when Yahushua come back here. You're going to be right on the ground with the serpent, the Nakash. And he's going to be bruising your head. He's going to be, that word, the bar, going to come in your mind, and it's going to be destroying all your deception. And guess what? That's what he's going to do. And to the woman, he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. And in pain, you shall bring forth children. In pain. How you say? It's a bone. How you say? In pain. And your desire shall be contrary to your husband. Your tashuka shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. He shall mashal over you. Because you know what happens when you go opposite of Yahuwah? Yahuwah like, okay, let me reiterate this to you again. Because the first time, I don't think you heard me the first time. He's going to mashal over you. And guess what happens after that? And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife. And so all this is a part of it. They didn't lie when they came to Yahuwah. They didn't lie when they confessed, when he asked them a question, when he was judging them. And then he dished out a punishment. He just added some pain to your childbearing. And then he said you're going to be ruled over mashal by Adam. And then guess what happens after that? These are his judgments. And then you know what happens after that? And to Adam he said, now he get the last person. He said, okay, now here come your judgment for what you did. Why? Because he judged in the midst of the Elohims. Is it not written in your Torah says you are gods? Elohim. You created in Yahuwah's image and likeness. So therefore you are just like him. And he says, and to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and you have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Cursed is the ground. You know what happens after that? You know what happens when the ground is cursed? That means things that you sow in the ground ain't going to yield what you think. Because your life is cursed. Because you listen to the voice of the woman, Isha, to eat from a tree that you weren't supposed to eat from. Because Yahuwah commanded you not to. And by doing so, this is your punishment. It says, and you have eaten of the tree which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain, it's a bone, you shall eat all the days of your life. He said, in pain, it's a bone. All the days of your life. Why? Because they're signifying the things that's going to be removed. Why do you think you're getting pain? It's just like how you say, why you think it's a bone? Why do you think you're in pain? Because it's a part of the birthing process. The same thing for the woman. It's all a part of the birthing process. Mashal over you, mashal over you, that's a part of the birthing process. The very same thing when it comes to you having children. It's the birthing process. That's why he said you got pain. It's all a part of the birthing process. You gonna sow and you ain't gonna have, man, what he said, how come I ain't got, he said, you gonna sow and you ain't gonna have nothing. He said, in pain you shall eat it all the days of your life. You're gonna be in so much pain. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth to you. He said, you're gonna have some good and some evil. And you shall eat the plants of the field. You shall eat the plants of the field. That's his judgment. It's always been his judgment. It's always been his judgment. By the sweat of your face, you shall eat bread. How you going to do that? Harvesting wheat and barley, grind it up into powder, put it in water, make it, bake it, eat it. That's how you're going to eat bread. From the sweat of your face, you shall eat lakam, bread. What do you think? Why do you think bread was always present? Every place, anything we did, lakam was always present. It was always present. It was present at the man in the book of Judges with the fake Levite who pretended. It was always there. It was at the Yahoo when he was at the woman's house. It was always there. It's that there in your house during Qahalath. It was there when the Malaky came to Abraham. Lakam was always there. He was always there. And he amazingly, Yahushua say, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahuwah. So he got, not only he got the bread that he's supposed to eat, but also the judgment, and he got to live by it. According to Deuteronomy chapter 8, I believe. And it says right here, by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. So are you eating bread right now? Lakam. Yahushua said, these words I speak unto you, they are ruach and they are life. Because you remember, they're the life givers versus the deceivers. Because you know the deceivers are going to do what? Tell you, oh, you know, the smooth speech. It's all right. It's okay. I'm going to make it anyway. You know how to say? They're going to still go. They're going to do the opposite of what Yahuwah say. I'm going to make it. That makes a lot of sense. And it says, by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, lakam, till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you shall return. He said, you were taken from the dust, and guess what happened? You're going to return to the dust. You're going to be black to the ground. Sackcloth and ashes. You're going right back to the very thing you were made from. And guess what happens? The man called his wife, his name Ka'ua, because she was the mother of all living. Why? Because these are life givers. The life givers versus the deceivers. The life givers, he said, so which one are you? Right? Which one are you? He said, which one are you? Are you a life giver? Or are you a deceiver? Because there are more deceivers than there are life givers. He said, how do we know this? This is Yeshayahu chapter 54. Yeshayahu chapter 54 and Isaiah chapter 54 and verse, let's go to verse 1. Yeshayahu 54 and 1. It says, sing, O barren one. What do you mean, O barren one? Sing, O barren one who do not bear. Who is that? Who is that? Who's the barren one that can't bear? He said, how do you know the barren one that can't bear? It's you. Break forth into singing and cry aloud. Why would he say break forth into singing and cry aloud? Because some people don't want to sing. But it says, you who have not been in labor. Because he said, in pain, it's upon you going to bring forth children. He said, are you in labor yet? Are you pregnant yet? Do you have a child on the inside? Because you know you got the life givers versus the deceivers. And you know what it says? For the children of the desolate, or you mean the Nakash, just like we just talked about, your seed are going to be what? Have enmity with her seed. His seed going to have enmity with your seed. For more are the children of the desolate, for the children of the desolate one will be more than the children of her who is married. They're going to be more than you. He said, so are you pregnant yet? He said, they're going to be more. There's more deceivers in the world than there are life givers. They overnumber, they outpopulate you. Because Nakash, that's what all they're made to do. Their whole heart and mind is to devour. Like in Yahuwah say, don't be coming before me while I have food in your mouth. That you be full and you deny him. That's why he tells you not to come here with all that food in your mouth. Their whole life is just to devour, eat, destroy, create. That's all they do, because they walk by the flesh. And it says that the children of her who is married, says Yahuwah, right? Enlarge the place of your tent, and let the curtains of your habitation be stretched out. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. For you will be spread abroad to the right and to the left, and your offspring will possess the nations, and will people the desolate cities. Right? Fear not, for you will not be ashamed. Why? Because he's literally telling the life givers, the ones who come out from the seed, the ones who are honest, that woman that was honest when she confessed her sins, and she said, yeah, the serpent deceived me and all these things, right? They told the truth when Yahuwah asked them a question. They didn't deceive, they didn't lie, right? They didn't do that. He said, you know what? You're going to possess the nations. Matter of fact, you will be the people, even though you're a small people. He said, enlarge yourself, stretch yourself out, make your thing bigger. Why? Because it ain't that many of you. It's not that many of us. If you say, oh, it's a lot. No, it ain't. There are more people of the desolate one, the deceiver, than it are the people that Yahuwah is talking about. True Yashua. Not the fake one. For you will be spread abroad to the right and to the left, and your offspring will possess the nations, and will the people desolate cities. Fear not, for you will not be ashamed. Be not confounded, for you will not be disgraced. For you will forget the shame of your youth. How you going to forget it? How you going to forget something that you did in your youth? How you think Adam and Qahalath, when they did all that, that was a shame of their youth? When they transgressed Yahuwah, and they were honest too, it was a shame of their youth. And they didn't lie. You know what happened? They told the truth too. And guess what happened? And the reproach of your widowhood, you will remember no more. He said, you don't even remember it no more. The reproach of your widowhood. Why? Because you don't have any children. What happened to you? And get what it says. For your maker is your husband. For who? For your maker is your husband. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. He said, I know you ain't pregnant yet, but guess what? I got a husband for you. I got a husband for you. I got a ruler for you. Mashal, I got a ruler for you. Guess what? He said, Yahuwah is his name. He said, you want him? You want to be with him? Hey, I got a husband for you. And the Kudashman of Yashua is your redeemer. I got a redeemer for you too. The Elohim of the whole earth, he is called. He said he mastered the whole earth. He the Elohim, the God of the whole earth that you stand on. All in the four corners of it. And you know what happens after that? For Yahuwah has called you like a wife deserted and grieved in Ruach. Like what? Like a wife deserted and grieved in Ruach. Not in the flesh. He said, you grieve like a wife deserted and grieved in her Ruach. Why is she grieved in her Ruach? Deserted. Because she ain't got no child. Because it's more the desolate than she to have a husband. He's like, man, I ain't even pregnant. He like, yeah, but you got a husband, and his name is Yahuwah. And if you grieve in Ruach like a woman, because he told Qahalath, in pain you shall bring forth children. It's a bone. And your desire shall be to your husband, he shall rule over you. He said, but if I ain't got no child, how am I going to be? He's like, hold up, I ain't got no baby. I ain't got no child. And get what it says. For Yahuwah has called you like a wife deserted and grieving ruach, like a wife of you when she is cast off, says Yahuwah. Why? Because she can't produce anything. He's like, you're like a wife cast off. And you know what happens? For a brief moment, I deserted you. He said, for a brief moment, I did that. I love. Get what he said? But with great compassion, I will gather you. And guess what? In an overflowing anger for a moment, what happened? We know what happens when you get angry. How did that person get to the point where anger was consumed? Anger was created. It says a soft answer turneth away anger. But grievous words stir up wrath. He said, in my anger, I left. He said, why? Because of your answers. But guess what happens? In the overflowing anger for a moment, I hid my face from you. He's like, man, I'm gone. He says, so why are you doing that? But with everlasting love, I will have compassion on you. People saying, how do you know a person has compassion? Right? How do you know? All you gotta do is look at Yahuwah, your Elohim and Aydah, the one who's over all four corners of the earth, and you will see. He's like, this person does this, and then what he says right here, he says, with compassion on you, says Yahuwah of hosts, your Redeemer. But guess what it says? Verse 9. This is like the days of Noah to me. Noah. What were they doing in the days of Noah? As I swore that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth, so I have sworn that I will not be angry with you and will not rebuke you. He said, I'm going to pardon you just like I did Noah. You know why? Because that's how much compassion I have on you. Because I could let you perish like everybody else. But for you, I'm not going to do that. But he says, for the mountains may depart and the hills be removed by my... He said, but the mountains may depart and the hills be removed. How is it going to happen? An earthquake. The shaking of the Shamanis in the earth. But my steadfast love shall not depart from you, and my covenant of peace shall not be removed, says Yahuwah of hosts, who has compassion on you. Right? So all that's important, right? So going over to here, going to the book of Psalms. Going to the book of Psalms. Going to the book of Psalms. Tahalim. The book of Psalms. Chapter 30 and 2. Book of Psalms, chapter 30, verse 1. Book of Psalms, Tahalim 30 and 1. I will extol you, for you have drawn me up, and have not let my foes rejoice over me. Why are you going to do that? O Yahuwah, Elohim, I cried to you for help, and you have healed me. O Yahuwah, you have brought up my soul from Sheol. He said, I'm going to gather you, though. He said, even though you cast off like a woman grieved in her ruah, you restored me to life from among those who go down to the pit. She said, huh? Sing praises to Yahuwah. Sing, O barren one. Sing, O barren one. O you, his Kadashim. And give thanks to his Kadash name, your husband. For his anger is but for a moment. I know what you did. I know how you answered. I know you gave grievous words. I know how you answered the questions. I know how you went off. He said, I know. Matter of fact, it stirred up so much wrath and anger in me. I went away. I hid myself. But guess what happened? For a moment. And his favor is for a lifetime. Huh? You know how I say? is for a lifetime. That's what his marriage is like. His marriage is for a lifetime. People say, my marriage ain't for a lifetime when I say Yahuwah's name. He said, okay. He said, it's for a lifetime. And you know what happens? Weeping may tarry for the night, just like a woman grieving her ruach that was cast away because of his anger. He hid himself. But guess what? Weeping may endure for the night. You know, the iron, you know how you're gonna be what? You're gonna be black to the ground and sackcloth and ashes. But he said, weeping may endure for the night, but people don't weep. How you say righteous repentance? It doesn't really happen. But joy, simcha, comes in the morning. It comes when the sun comes up. As for me, I said in my prosperity, I shall never be moved. But by your favor, O Yahuwah, you made my mountain stand strong. You hid your face, and I was dismayed, huh? He said, man, I thought, man, in my prosperity, I said, man, I'll never be moved. He said, you know how he said? You be stout and strong when you got all that stuff. When you got money and power, you feel like you somebody. You do. I'm not going to sit here and say you don't. You do. I've had it. I've had it many times. You feel like that. But then he said, what? You said, I'll never be moved. You'll never hit me to hit the ground. You'll never get me in sackcloth ashes. You'll never get me to repent with tears. You'll never get me to cry. You know how people say? But by your favor, O Yahuwah, you made my mountain stand strong. You hid your face, and I was dismayed. He said, I hid my face when you do that. Why he hid his face in anger and wrath. You know how it happens when people start asking you questions when you got a lot of stuff, money and riches and stuff. You start giving back them grievous anger and them grievous wrathful answers back. You start giving back those that's not a soft answer. You stop doing that. And you know what it says? To you, O Yahuwah, I cried. Then you start to change your mind. Are you gonna be like Adam and Qahalath and lie? Because Yahuwah already know the secrets of your heart. What you gonna do? Say, I didn't do anything wrong. And to Yahuwah, I plead for mercy. Why? Because of your stoutness of your heart. Yahuwah said, you did that to me. You made my mountain strong. He said, you know what happened to Yahuwah? He said, I'm gonna make the mountains tossing to and fro. I'm gonna make them come out of their place. And he said, why are you gonna be high? Because that's what they're gonna do. He said, to you, O Yahuwah, I cry, and to Yahuwah plead for mercy. What profit is there in my death if I go down to the pit? What profit is that if you ain't got nobody to get you out? Will the dust praise you? Will the dust praise you? Dust ain't gonna praise you. Right? When you in sackcloth and ashes back to the ground, man, you hitting the ground. It says, will it tell of your faithfulness? Hear, O Yahuwah, and be merciful to me. O Yahuwah, be my helper. Be my what? Be my Azar. Be my helper. Be my helper. What is he now saying? He like, I ain't got no Azar. Because he was supposed to have a woman. He said, I ain't got one. Just like a woman ain't have no husband. He said, I ain't got no Azar. He said, be my helper. Yahuwah, be my helper. Just like a woman who ain't got no child and she grieves in her ruach. And guess what happened? Yahuwah said, you know what, I'm going to gather you. The man's like, man, I was stout. I had a bunch of money. I had wealth. I was giving back them grievous answers when I was questioned. Man, I was saying all the time, I was stirring up your anger and wrath. You hid your face from me. And you know what happened? He said, you know what? You will be my helper again. You have turned for me my mourning into dancing, huh? You turned me when I was sackcloth and ashes on the ground. He said, you turned my mourning into dancing. You have loosed my sackcloth, huh? You have loosed, sackcloth and ashes. You were black to the ground. You have loosed my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness, that my kabod, my glory, may sing your praise and not be silent. He said, break off the singing, O barren one. O Yahuwah, I will give you thanks to you forever. Why? Because this is all a part of it. Why? Because a soft answer turneth away wrath, turneth away anger. But grievous words stirs up wrath, right? And all that's a part of it, right? All that's a part of it. This is Psalm chapter 78. Psalms, Tahalim, chapter 78 and verse 23. Actually, Psalm 78 and 21. Tahalim 78 and 21. Therefore, when Yahuwah heard, he was full of wrath, and fire kindled against Yaakov, and his anger rose against Yasharah. Why? Because when he go to the judgments, Yahuwah start judging people. They just, man, you saying a lot of things about me. You saying you ain't giving no soft answer, and it has to be truthful. But because they did not believe in Elohim and did not trust in his saving power, they didn't trust in it. Yet he commanded the skies above and opened the doors of Shamayim, and he rained down on them manna to eat. And he gave them the grain of the Shamayim. He gave them what? He gave them the grain of Shamayim. Because, we're from a heavenly, we talked about last week, a heavenly Jerusalem. The one from the Shamayim. That can't be shaken. He gave us the grain from Shamayim. He gave us Malaky food from Shamayim. What is this man? All we got is this man to look at. They don't even know the food they rejected. They rejected the grain of Shamayim. You know how that in Leviticus chapter 4, 3, when they bring the grain offering with the frankincense and the oil mixed and bring it to Yahuwah, he's like, man, these people rejected the grain offering. They rejected the grain from Shamayim. Man ate the bread. Oh. They ate what? Man ate the lakam of Malaky. What did Adam? He said, Adam. He said, you gonna eat the bread. He said, in the sweat of your brow, you gonna till the earth. You gonna eat bread till you die. Lakam. That's what he told Adam. That was his punishment. And he said, you're gonna eat the plants of the earth. He said that. He said, you ate the bread, the lakam of Malakim, and he sent them food in abundance. You know how much Malachi, man is food in abundance. So he say the grain from Shamayim is food in abundance. Which means, what type of food are you eating? We're not talking about natural food. We're talking about from the Ruach. And get what it says. He caused the east wind to blow in the Shamayims, and by his power he led out the south wind. He rained meat on them like dust. He rained meat on them like dust, winged birds like the sand of the sea. He gave you so many birds. He gave you all that. He gave you man. First he gave you, they rejected the food from above. They said, what is this man? We got to look at it. They start complaining about it. The Malaky food. And then he sent them meat of animals, like a beast. And he says, wings like the sand of the seas. He let them fall in the midst of their camp, all around their door. He let them fall. He said, being that you rejected the manna, then here goes some other things that you desire. And they ate and were well filled, for he gave them what they craved. You know how you had this movie called Craving. What he craved. But we just, at the same time, you say, what do you mean craved? You craved that. I gave you everything you wanted. And amazingly, when you're getting ready to have a birthing process, you know, it talks about in pain you shall bring forth children. In pain you're going to till the ground. But dust thou shall return. That's all a part of the birthing process. And what did he give him during that pain process? To feed his Ashah. The plant, he gave him the grain. He said, you're going to eat bread, lakam. Why do you think he was feeding them bread in the wilderness? Lakam, manna. He was from the spread of his brow. He's trying to show you how I feed my family. Feed my shop. And you know what happens after that? And he rained meat on them. He gave them what they crave. And you know what happened after that? You know when you give people the things they crave. Not the things they need. You know, like the calm and the things that Yahuwah provided from the Shamayim, Malaky food. They want some other stuff. And then when you start giving them other stuff, that's like the same thing when you start to see in the gun. And it says, but before they had tasted, But before they had satisfied their craving, because when you have a craving, you got to keep doing it till you satisfy it. While the food was still in their mouths, the anger of Yahuwah rose against them. Why? Because he was already angry at them before. For the answer they gave back to him from giving him the food. Like, I provided this food for you, and then you come and you start complaining, and that ain't no soft answer. And you created that wrath and that anger, and you know what happens? And he killed the strongest of them. Now you see why the rich man, the man who had all that wealth, he was like, man, when I was strong, you made my mountain strong, but you made me stout. You made me that way. But then he said, man, Yahuwah, you cast me down to the ground. And now I cry to you, please be my helper. And he killed the strongest of them and laid low the young men of Yasharal. He laid them all low. He put them, you black to the ground. I put you down. You know what he said? Being that you done this, Nakash, being that you did this, on your belly you shall go all the days of your life. And you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And he said, and strongest of them, and laid low the young men of Yasharal. In spite of all this, they still sin. So just because you give somebody their craving, what they crave, ooh, I love it. I crave that. I need to know that. They still sinned. Still. It didn't matter if he gave them their craving. You satisfied their hunger. Instead of the things they needed from the Shamayim, the Malaky food, because that ain't enough. You know how you say Malaky food, do you understand what that is? That ain't enough for you? But do you see the war between flesh and ruach? But it said right here, they still sinned. Despite his wonders, they did not believe. They still sinned. They didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. And it says, so he made their days vanish like a breath. And he said, why are days get short? Why do people die? He made their days vanish like a breath, which means he shortened their lifespan. He shortened their lifespan. People saying, why we die? Because we don't like the bread that comes from Shamayim. We don't like the man. We don't like to eat lakam. You don't want to do what Adam did. He said, in the sweat of your brow, you're going to till the ground. He said, you're going to eat the plants of the earth. And you're going to eat lakam to the day of your death. Dust thou and dust thou shall return. You don't want that. You don't want to bring forth pain. You don't want to work in the garden. You don't want to bring forth pain. And he said, rejoice thou bearest not. Why? Because that's how you're going to live. In spite of all this, they still sinned. In spite of his wonders, they did not believe. So he made their days vanish like a breath and their years in terror. That's what he's going to do. It says, when he killed them, they sought him. You know, I say, Yahuwah, man, when I had all them riches, boy, you made my mountain strong. But you made me, ooh, when you do, man, it was like nobody could tell me nothing. But then get what he said. When he killed them, they sought him. They repented and sought Elohim earnestly. They remembered that Elohim was their rock, and the Most High, Elohim, their Redeemer. How you say it? They remembered it. Remember we talked about in Yeshayahu? He just said, man, I'm a Redeemer. He said, I got a man for you. Even though you ain't barren and you breathe in Ruach, I got a Elohim. He said, Yahuwah, he your husband. Matter of fact, I got a Redeemer for you. But get what happened when they did the Redeemer. But they flattered him with their mouths, which means they lied. You know, like you said. A soft answer turned away wrath. With grievous words, you know, grievous is a lie. It stirs a wrath. They flattered with their mouths, they lied to him with their tongue. That's what that does. That's what that does. When you start to lie, why do you think Adam and Yahuwah ain't lie? They got a little pain in their punishment, but their life ain't get short, and they live 930 years. They did. Their heart was not steadfast toward Yahuwah. That's why he wants steadfast love. He said their heart was not steadfast in him. They were not faithful to his covenant, Bari, to the marriage covenant. You know, I said they weren't faithful. He said this marriage is forever. This love is forever. We just talked about, right? He said it's forever. They weren't faithful to the bereaved. Yahuwah like, it's forever love. He said Yahuwah is forever love. I had wrote a song called Forever Love for a woman to sing. But he said what? It's forever love. This is forever. But guess what it said? Their heart was not steadfast toward him. They were not faithful to his covenant. Yet he, being compassionate, there you go, atoned for their iniquity and did not destroy them. And he restrained his anger often. He did what? His anger often, which means their answers and the way they were talking to him. He restrained his anger. He redeemed them and showed compassion on them and restrained his anger often and did not stir up all his wrath. Do you understand? There is a wrath inside of you that if you stir all of it up, there is an anger inside of you that if you stir all of it up, and he remembered that they were but flesh. He remembered. See, you gotta remind yourself that. People say affirmations. You need to remind yourself that when your anger and wrath getting ready to come up against somebody, or they give you a lie to you, or lie about you, or not you grievous words and stir up wrath, your compassion needs to kick in, and then you need to understand we are flesh. We are flesh. Because if you don't, get what it says, we remember that we are only flesh, a wind that passes and comes not again. He said that's how our life is. How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness. How often? He's like, you know how many times they did it? He said they did it so many times. You think about that. They rebelled against his marriage covenant, his Isha, all these people, his bride, because it ain't just one person. His bride consists of multiple. We talked about this. Bride ain't got nothing to do with just a woman. It's all women, a woman. It's all everything encompassed into one. That's household, children, ox, donkey, servants, men servants, everything you own. Women, wives, wife, all that. It all encompasses into one. Evil wives, good wife, evil husbands, good. All that's a part of it. And he had to govern it all. And you know what happened? He said, that's his bride. And you know what happened? How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. He's like, man, you know how many times he done did it? That's all a part of the whole thing. They tested Elohim again and again. How many times? Again and again. So you need to get this in your mind before you start to get angry and get upset. We are only flesh. A woman needs to get in her mind. They're only flesh. He's only flesh. They're only flesh. A man needs to get in his mind. They're only flesh. You have to. Or your compassion ain't gonna kick in. You have to. He said again and again, and provoke the Kudash one of Yasharal. We provoking to wrath and anger. We just talked about what people gonna do when these wrath really come on him. His anger. And provoked the Kudash one of Yasharal, and they did not remember his power, or the day when he redeemed them from the foe, when he performed his signs in Mizraim and his marvels in the field of Zorn. He turned their rivers to blood, so that they could not drink of their streams. That's how, when you get angry and wrathful, there's a lot of stuff start happening to me. And what happened? He sent among them swarms of flies, which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. He gave their crops to the destroying locusts, and the fruit of their labor to the locusts. He destroyed their vines and hail, and their sycamores with frost. Which means he made it when it was actually supposed to be a harvest season. You know how we get a harvest season? He made it cold, right in the middle of summer, and destroy all your crops, all your plants. He said that's what Yahuwah Wrath do. And he destroyed everything. You know why? Because of the things you keep provoking in the wrath over and over again. And you know what he said? And he destroyed their vines and their head and with hail and their sycamore with frost. He gave their cattle to the hail and their flocks to the thunderbolts. He let loose on them in burning anger, wrath, indignation, and distress, a company of destroying Malaky. And the Malaky's still here. He landed 2 weeks ago, and he's still standing there. He said, how I know he's still standing there? Because I know. They just sitting here watching. Everybody all around the four corners just sitting here watching you. They standing right, they probably one right next to your house, just standing there. He ain't did nothing yet. He just waiting to see he gonna unsheath his thing and just boom, blow you up, do something. You don't even know. He said because of the wrath that he got. He said they provoking me over and over and over again. And he just standing there. And get what it said. He did not spare them from death, but gave their lives over to the plague. He struck down every firstborn in Mizraim in the first fruit of the strength of the tents of Ham. Because that's what Ham is. You know Ham, you go all the way back to all the way back to Nuak. Because that's all he was dealing with, Ham. This go all the way back to Nuak. People say, oh, it's about your code. No, it go all the way back to Nuak. He said he traced the history all the way back from Nuak, from Nimrud, from Mizraim, all the way back to his lineage. When he was looking at his father and uncovered his father's nakedness. Go all the way back. Because it started off as a seed. Because remember when Ham was, when they went to go to the schoolhouse to be taught, Ham wasn't there. Only Japheth and Shem was there. Ham was learning something totally different. Right, but let's go. Then he led out his people like sheep and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them in safety. Huh? He did what? He led them in safety. That's what he does. He leads you in safety. And you know what he does? Even though you provoke him over again, so that they were not afraid. He said that's the only reason he do it, so you won't be afraid. But the sea overwhelmed their enemies, right? So we're going to get out of there. But at the same time, you look at all that, you say, why did he do that? Because of his anger and his wrath. Right? So this is the fourth book of Azra. Fourth book of Azra. Pseudepigrapha. Fourth book of Azra, Pseudepigrapha, volume 1. Fourth book of Azra, Pseudepigrapha, volume 1. Let's go to Exodus chapter 23:16. Exodus chapter 23:16. Exodus chapter 23, let's go there first. Exodus chapter 23:16. Right. Actually go. Actually, go Exodus chapter 23:10. Exodus chapter 23:10. It says, For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield. But in the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat. What? Because that's for the poor. That's what the 7th day is for. And amazingly, you look at the seventh letter alphabet, swore not rest of our word perfection, right? Because you're supposed to rest in the 7th month, in the 7th year, right? In the 7th year, that's the year of Jubilee. The year of Jubilee is for the poor people, that the poor of your people may eat. Because you know when you're rich, you just talked about it. You said, man, you made my mountain hard, but you made me stop. When you got all that, when you have all that wealth and all that, he's like, man, you made me. He said, nobody could tell. He said, my answers. He said, but then you brought me to the ground. You brought me low. He said that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave, the beasts of the field may eat. Of course, in the field, plants, food, grain, barley, wheat. And amazingly, all what's supposed to eat after that? And what you leave, the beasts of the fields may eat. Isn't that what he told Adam? Isn't that what he told Adam? And amazingly, he said that to him. He said, and Yehobarach them. He said, every tree yielding seed will bear fruit. He said, you have it for food. And every green plant you shall have for the food and give it to animals as well. And Yahuwah said, all he made, he said, is male towel, good and very good, and it was evening and morning. And get what it says. They may eat, and you shall do likewise with your vineyards and with your olive orchards. Huh? With your what? With your olive orchards. 6 days you shall do your work, but the 7th day shall you rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest. Why? Because they plowing in your field. And the son of your servant woman and the stranger may be refreshed. Why? Because they're in the field working. They're in your field. They need a rest too. Pay attention to all that I have said. What he say? Pay attention to all that I have said to you. And make no mention of the names of other gods, nor let it be heard from your lips. Why? You go to your husband, Yahuwah, and you start saying another man. Say another God. And see what happened to you. Say another Elohim. Say another name. He'd be like, huh? Say what? Baal, Ashton, Dagon, Mastama, Oshun. What? You finna do what? Where that guy come from? Lilith, Succubus, Ichabus. I ain't tell you to follow Autoleaf and Mustang. Who is? That's your guy. Baal, the blue man, the blue fat man. Your God now? Hold up. What happened? Osiris, Isis, Pegasus, Galaxy. What in the world? What do you think? You go ahead and you do that you want to. Now, he's talking about other people. He said, you do it and see what happened. I said, he said, you're going to be like the sons when they saw David. They saw the sons of God. And he said, the sons of the servant, he saw the Malaky. They hid themselves. They were like, man, we were scared. They hid themselves. You know what happened after that? And the son of the servant woman and the alien woman, pay attention, right? No God, he said, God's mentioned out of your mouth, right? But why did he say that? Because all that's a part of it. Because if we don't pay attention, then guess what happens? It becomes you, right? It's going to become you, right? So this going to Exodus chapter 23. Exodus 23. 23 and 20. Going there right quick and we're going here. It says, Exodus 23 and 20. Behold, I send a Malaky before you to guard you on the way, to bring you into the place that I prepared. Pay attention to him and obey his voice, and do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. What do you mean? He ain't pardon your transgressions. He ain't pardon your transgressions. They're going to be a punishment. Or they're going to be a punishment. Why do you think when the Malaky, when he heard the sound of him coming in the garden, gone, how do you think the king coming to the garden? With the sound of a Turah. They heard it. They heard the sound of Turah. And you know what happened after that? Adam hid himself. The wrath of Yahuwah is coming. And you know what happened after that? That's his judgment. The judgment of Yahuwah is coming. And you know what happened after that? They got their verdict. I mean, get what it says. Do not rebel against him, but he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. He said, he said, you know what? I ain't gonna lie for you. That's Billy what he's saying. I'm not going to lie for you. And get what happened? But if you carefully obey his voice and do not do all that I say, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. When my Malak goes before you and brings you to the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, I blot them out, you shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do as they do. But you shall utterly overthrow them and break their pillars into pieces. You shall serve Yahuwah your Elohim, and he will barak your what? You shall serve Yahuwah your Elohim, and he will barak, bless your bread. You know what he told Adam? He told Adam, Lakam, I'm gonna barak your bread that you make in pain. You shall what? You shall what? Eat the plants, and you're going to eat bread all the days of your life. He's talking about rock your bread and your water. Man shall not live by bread alone, by every word of the bar that comes out of the mouth of Yahuwah. As rain and snow comes down from Shamayim, so does the bar be that goes in my mouth. It shall not return to me void, it shall accomplish what I sent it to do. He's talking about rock your bread and your water. I'm going to barak your bread and your water. But what happens when you call on to God? I'm going to poison your water. And I will take sickness away from you. So how are you going to take sickness away from you? By your eating the bread and the water that he barak. How are you going to do that? You got to eat this. He said you got to eat it. None shall miscarry. Oh. Rejoice, he said, sing, O barren one. For more are the children of the desolate. Destruction is she that has a husband. There shall not be, he said what? None shall miscarry or be barren in your land. Be barren. You know why people are barren? Because he said you calling on other Elohims. You're giving grievous words. He said he asking you a question, you giving answers, and it's not a soft answer. And you're in grievous words and you're stirring up wrath. You're saying you're lying out of your mouth. So therefore, you're barren, you're miscarried, your bread is cursed, and your water is cursed. And amazingly, why did he tell that man of Elohim? He said, I'm a man of Elohim too. But he told that man of Elohim, he said, don't drink no what? Don't eat no bread and don't drink no water in this place. Why? Because they call on other gods and other Elohims, and they bread and they water is cursed. And if you do, you're going to miscarry and you're going to be barren. And you're going to die. I will fulfill the number of your days. I will send my terror before you and will throw into confusion all the people against whom you shall come. And I will make all your enemies turn their back to you. He said, but you know what you do? You turn your back. They're going to flee from you. But you know what you do? You turn your back to them. Because of your answers, your questions, when people ask you questions, you give them something different back. You're supposed to give a soft answer back. You're supposed to not give grievous words back to somebody who asks you questions. You're supposed to tell the truth. And if you get caught, you got to give yourself up like Adam. You know how Adam did? This is what happened. And he ain't lie either. This is what caused your wrath to be on you. And this is why you find yourself in the situations that you're in. It's not rocket science. What he said? I will send my terror before you, right? And it's verse 28. And I will send hornets before you, and shall drive out the Hivites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, and before you. And I will drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the wild beasts multiply against you. Right? He said, I won't do it all in 1 year. I will not drive them out in 1 year. Little by little, I will drive them out from before you until you have increased and possessed the land. Right? So, going to the book of 4th Algebra, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1. Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1. For book of Algebra, Pseudepigrapha 16, and 18. 16 and 18. The beginning of sorrows, when there shall be much lamentation, in the beginning of famine, when many shall perish, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall be terrified. What? In the beginning of calamities, when all shall tremble. Right? What shall they do in these circumstances? When the calamities come. Behold, famine, plague, tribulation, anguish are sent as scourges for the correction of man. For what? For your correction. He said, how are you going to get correction? You know what they were doing? What were they doing? He said, rocks follow us and hide us from the wrath, his wrath, right? The wrath of Yahuwah has come. The Lamb has come. Who's going to be able to stand? He said, you ain't going to be able to stand. Because you know what happens when you get correction? For those who love correction, it's going to be a different punishment for those who don't. Right? Right, so this is the book of Job, Aydah, chapter 37, and verse 12. Job, Aydah, chapter 37, verse 12. They turned around and around by his guidance to accomplish all he commands. Huh? What do you mean turn around and around? Going over to verse 10. By the breath of Elohim, ice is given. You know what he said he going to do? He did the trees. He said, I sent frost on it. Matter of fact, I did that in Mizraim because of my wrath and my anger. And it says right here, ice is given, and the broad waters are frozen fast. He said, they're frozen fast. He loads the thick clouds with moisture, and the clouds scatter his lightning. Anyway, he said he destroyed all the cattle with lightning, with flashes of lightning. Then he say, a sword is sharpened. Qahalath, Marut, Barak, Marut, right? A sword is sharpened for the sword. It flashed like lightning. They turn round and around in his guidance. What do you think? They turn round and around. He keep going around and around to accomplish all he commands them on the face of the habitable world. That's what it does all the time. Whether for correction, for what? For correction, or for his land, or for the love, he causes it to happen. For love. That's his burning anger and wrath. Because he loves you. It's correction when these things happen. This is our correction. People say, nah, that has nothing to do with correction. Yes, it does. It does. He said, why does he do this to us? Because it's needful. Why does he need to do this to us? Because it's important, right? Because he told us, he said, despise not, right? Despise not the chastening of Yahuwah, right? This is book of Proverbs, Malaky Proverbs. We read this all the time, but here we go. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 9. It says, honor Yahuwah with your wealth and with the first fruit of your produce. And if he send his wrath on you, correction, he's going to destroy all that. He's going to destroy it with frost and storms. He's going to uproot all the trees. So how are you going to do that? It says, then your barns will be filled with the plenty, and your vats with bursting with wine. We just read in the book of Exodus how you're supposed to 6 years you sow, 7th day you rest, and you leave it for the poor and the needy and the animals. Wow, showing you a pattern from the beginning in Bereshit. Verse 11, my son, do not despise Yahuwah's discipline. He's a correction. And be weary of his reproof. He said, man, why is this stuff happening? He said, you know, it's your correction. This is how he corrects people. For Yahuwah reproves whom he loves. That's why Ayub says it's for his love. It's for correction and love, and for his land. You mean for you. For his land, because he's pruning your land. He's pruning you. That's why he's doing it. He's pruning your thought process, your heart, your mind. He's proving you to see what's in your heart. He want to see. That's how he's going to find out. That's how I'm going to find out what's in you. By sending these calamities, disasters, and famines, and earthquakes, and pestilence, and storms, and lightning, and all these things, and not allowing you anything to increase. That's the only way he's going to be able to see what's in your heart and discipline and correct you. That's why he allows these things to happen in our lives. Even the years of your life, even recent years, right? It says what? And beware is reproved, for Yahuwah reproves him whom he loves. So he must love you. He said, Yahuwah don't love you. He don't love you. In the midst of all that, yeah, he do. You failed the test. How do you know? It's Yahuwah's discipline. He reproves whom he loves. He said he must love you then. And get what it says, as a father, the son in whom he delights. So he must delight in you to be doing it. So I guess he said he must love you. He must love me. He must love you and he must love me. He must love all of you. That's the only reason he's doing it. Barak is the one who finds wisdom. Oh, Hakma. He said, Barak are you. Why? And the one who gets understanding. He said, do you understand this? He said, I'm going to Barak your bread and your water. He said, do you understand this? For the gain of her is better than the gain of silver. Oh, when I was rich, when I had all that money, man, boy, you made my mountain hard, but the tree was stiff. And you say, when he took it away, he said, you brought me low. He said, Yahuwah, please be my helper again. Barak my bread and my water. Feed me with the bread from the highest Shemayim, Malaky food again. Let not me become desire and fall off the cravings. Like who? Barak is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. For the gain of her is better than the gain of silver, and the profit better than gold. Because all that's supposed to stay in the ground in the garden. Remember, it was when they had 4 rivers going out. It was going in the river. Because they found gold in the river, and they're supposed to water your plants with that, and those things get in the soil and it makes the trees and stuff like that. People don't really care about that anymore. They only care about what they put on their arm and their neck and on their wrist, and the ring on their fingers, or the things that people delight in. They don't care about that stuff anymore. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you can desire can compare with her. Think about everybody desire Hakma found it. All the jewels and things would be sitting right in the caves and the mountains, and then you'd probably be walking on streets of bdellium and beryl and topaz and gold and silver. You probably would be walking. It'd probably be in the street corners. It'd probably be gold in the trees. There'd be so much gold in the water. You'd be finding gold in the trees, in the river. It'd just be there, and you can just look at it. You ain't even got to use it for no wealth and no gain. Think about it. But that's a whole nother subject. Verse 15, she is more precious than jewels, and nothing you can desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. How you say in her yad? The 10th letter of the alphabet. The 10th letter of the alphabet. Open right hand, attainment, gain. Right? That's why they put it. And it says, in her left hand are riches and honor. He said her kaf. Your yad and your kaf. He said, so in your left and your right, it's no, when you got with Hakma, your left and your right hand are clean. You know how he should say, he said, man, your left and your right hand are clean when you have it. And get what it says. Her ways are the ways of pleasantness, and her paths are peace. Because when they ask a question that wisdom is going to give a soft answer. That's what Hakma going to do. But when you ain't got wisdom, you're going to be giving grievous words. You're going to be lying. And then it's going to stir up wrath and anger. Then you're going to have to, and then if you do that, you better hope you remember that you are only flesh, because when that anger and that wrath of that other person come back at you, you're going to get angry and wrath. You better remember that we are only flesh. You better pop that right back in your mind, or you're going to find yourself in an altercation. with Yahuwah himself. And you be like, long life is in her right hand, and her left riches and honor. And her ways are pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Shalom. She is a tree of, She is a what? She is a tree of life to those who lay hold on her. She is tree of life. He was saying, eat from the tree of life. Lest he eat from the tree of life, and he will live forever. He has become like one of us. And once you have that chakma, it's like the tree of life. Now you see what the tree of life is like. When chakma enter your mind, your consciousness, it's like the tree of life. It's just like the tree that he swung and kept a Malaky to keep the way of the tree of life. That's what the Malaky there for. I got to keep the way of the tree of life, because if I don't keep the way of the tree of life, then wisdom is going to fail inside of you. And then you know what happens as wisdom fails inside of you? You're going to be stirring up strife and anger. And then guess what? Yahuwah is not going to be your favorite Elohim anymore. He's going to hide his face from you. Just like he did David, just like he did the children of Yasharon. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. How you say? He's gonna barak your water in your bread, and he's gonna lengthen your days. Adam, cool, male and female, son and daughter, mother and father. Yahuwah by wisdom founded the earth. You go through all that, you know what he says? Yahuwah by Hakmah founded the earth. And by understanding, he established the Shamayim. By his knowledge, he broke the deep open, and the clouds dropped down dew. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, and they will be life to your soul and adornment to your neck. Going to Proverbs chapter 3, verse 22, that word for neck. Proverbs chapter 3, in verse 22, Proverbs chapter 3, that word for neck. Proverbs chapter 3, in verse 22, that word for neck is gagaroth. Gagaroth. You know what that gagaroth means? It'll be dormant to your throat. You know your throat? Your neck. He said, you know your throat? He said, why would he say throat? You know, some people use the throat and they try to say it's your voice, it's the things you speak. Because wisdom is going to be coming out of your throat. Out of your throat. And amazingly, what comes out of your throat? He said, he that believes on me, as the scripture said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. What color do they always put water? Blue. And get what it says. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom. They will be life to your soul, your nefesh. That's how you made Adam in the beginning. Life, giving ruach. Remember, the children of life versus the deceivers. Nakash versus the givers of life. The givers of life have hakmah, wisdom, in their throat. You know the wisdom of Yahuwah. It's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the songs of fools. And get what it says. And they will be life to your soul and adornment to your neck. They are adorned to your throat. You know how you adorn your throat? You know people have these throat necklaces on? It'll be adornment to your throat. You know what happens? Then you will walk in your way securely because you have it in your throat. And your foot, your regal will not stumble. That's why Yahushua said your foot got to be, or your feet. He said you can clean your body, but your feet not clean. You must ain't got no hakmah, no wisdom. He said, if you can understand these things, he said, you see me washing other people's feet? He said, do the same thing. How you going to wash people's feet? By wisdom. How you gonna watch their regard? By how come? Everything works together in correlation, right? Then you will walk your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you will not be afraid. Huh? That's the only reason he corrects you, so you won't be afraid anymore. He said you won't be afraid anymore when you repent and go and sackcloth and ashes. He said you won't be afraid anymore. He said, rejoice, O barren one. Sing a song. For more are the children of the desolate and the she that got a husband. He said, if you ain't got no husband, I know you grieving your ruach. I got a husband for you. His name is Yahuwah. But even in your complaints and your grievous words, I have compassion on you and I'll bring you back. But that's how he works. He said, your sleep will be sweet. He said, when you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror and the ruin of the wicked. Why? Because how did that come? Storms, earthquakes, famines, pestilence, frost, destruction. Why? Because of the things that they spoke. You said that. Ooh, you said that? What you said? But I would grievous right there. When I wasn't a soft answer, you lied. Uh-oh. And Yahuwah will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. What do you mean foot from being caught? They got traps. All right, just back at first book of Ezra, you almost finished. Pseudepigrapha, volume 1. Pseudepigrapha, volume 1, fourth book of Ezra, chapter 18 and verse 1. Actually going to verse 18 and 19. Verse 16 and 19. Pseudepigrapha 16 and 19. Fourth book of Ezra, 16 and 19. Do in these circumstances, when these calamities come, he said, what do you do? What will they do in these circumstances when these calamities come? Behold, the famine and the plague, the tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for the correction of men, for love too. Yet for all this, they will not turn away from their iniquities. They still sin still. You know, we just read in the book of Psalms. They sin still. But Yahuwah, he the same person. He ain't changed. I am Yahuwah, I change not. It says, nor be always mindful of the scourges. They're going to forget all about all the punishments they got. Behold, provisions will be so cheap upon earth that men will imagine that peace is assured for them. You know how to say? It's getting there. They say it's setting up. You know how people say. The price is going up. Don't worry about it. Eventually, it's going down. Get what it said. But why he making the price go up? Because you stout. Ooh, you know how you say when you got that money, you rich. You say, man, y'all been high up. Y'all been talking. He said, Yahuwah made your mountain strong, boy. He made you strong. Your tree strong. You know, he said, I'm gonna bring you down to the ground, though. The only reason he's doing that to make those who understand it. Why he's doing it. He's gonna make you in sackcloth and ashes and make you repent for those who understand it. But those who don't understand it, they're gonna continue to be on that level of the mindset. And it says, behold, the provisions will be so cheap that on the earth that men will imagine peace is assured for them. And then the calamity shall spring up upon the earth. The sword, the famine, and great confusion. For many of those who live on the earth shall perish by famine. He said, there's not going to be a famine of bread and water and the things that you see naturally. It's going to be a famine of hearing the word of Yahuwah. Why? Because their bread and their water are going to be cursed. How you know people bread and water cursed? Because they got other names of other gods in it. When they got grievous words that stir up wrath, and what? They lie and they don't give soft answers. It says, and those who survive the famine shall die by the sword. He said, you're going to die by the sword. And the dead shall be cast out like dung. And there shall be no one to console them. For the earth shall be left desolate, and the cities shall be demolished. No one shall be left to cultivate the earth or to sow it. The trees shall bear fruit, and who will gather it? The grapes shall ripen, and who will tread them? For in all places there shall be a great solitude. You know, like solitude. You know, people talk about solitude. You ever been to a place and it's only like one person, two people on the beach? Isn't it so peaceful? You think about that. When you go to a place where it's crowded, it's a whole bunch of people, it's like, man, man, I need to find me a private beach. Isn't that what you say? I know how people say this, but then, I guess you ain't never really actually found peace then, and shalom and solitude. You're like, man, I thought it was like, man, it's like 15, 30 people in the trail today. I thought I was gonna have a little solitude, right? Now you see why Yahushua chose to go and pray by himself. What was he looking for? He was looking for solitude, and when he found the place, he said, I'm gonna pray here. Because there's nobody around, it's peaceful, it's solitude, and then you can pray. You know what happens? And you know what happens after that? I know it sounds crazy, but man, you have no idea. Then he said he's gonna barack us with peace. We just read it in the he said, great would be the peace. We just read it in the book of Proverbs. How do you think he's gonna get his children to get some peace? People have no idea. People have no clue. For out of the city, get what it says, the grapes shall ripen, and who shall tread them? For in all places there shall be a great solitude. One man will long to see another, or even to hear his voice. He said, man, that's how many people are going to be here. He's like, man. But those for carnal, you ever seen a carnal-minded person? Man, I thought it was the only person. For out of a city 10 shall be left, and out of the field 2 who have hidden themselves in thick groves and clefts of the rocks. He said, that's how many people are going to survive. You know what happens after that? As in an olive orchard, 3 or 4 olives may be left of every tree. Or as when a vineyard is gathered, some clusters may be left, but those who search carefully through the vineyard, so in those days 3 or 4 shall be left by those who search their houses with the sword. Why? Because you know how it happens when nobody left. Everybody just start looting, going to people's store, going to people. Why do you think Yahushua say, don't lay up your treasures here on earth where thieves break through and steal? Lay your treasure in Shabath. Why? Because that's what happens when disasters happen. When famines and earthquakes and pestilence and things, because of Yahuwah's wrath, because people giving these grievous words when he asks you a question. You make stone of his wrath by doing things that are opposite of what he said. And get what it says. It says, in vineyard gather, and some clusters may be left of those who search carefully of the vineyard. So in those days 3 or 4 shall be left by those who search their houses with the sword, and the earth shall be left desolate, and its fields shall be for briars, and its roads and all its paths shall bring forth thorns. Isn't that what he told Adam? Thorns and thistles is going to yield you. But you're going to eat plants to the earth. Amazing he got the plants here, and you're going to eat bread. Look, come until you die. Amazing he got all that stuff there. And amazing in the year of Jubilee, he said you're supposed to leave the plants, leave the things in your field for what? For the poor and the animals. He said, you're going to have his year of Jubilee. He said, how many people is going to include? But that's the whole point. And the earth shall be left desolate, and the fields shall bring forth briars, and its roads and all its paths shall bring forth thorns, because no sheep will go along them. Because ever seen a deer path or a place where animals run? Things don't grow on the path. The path is just because so many people walking on it. So no vegetation grows on that path. So being that nobody's walking in it, what happens? Then the vegetation grows on the path and you can't see it anymore. But that's how it works. If you've ever been out in these places. And it says right here, because no sheep was along them. He said, virgins shall mourn because they have no bridegroom. He said, man, virgins, there going to be so many virgins. He's like, man, the virgins ain't going to have no husband. And you know what happens after that? Women shall mourn because they have no husbands. The daughters shall mourn because they have no helpers. Right, because there ain't going to be nobody. Their bridegrooms shall be killed in war. That's why he said they're going to be famines, pestilence, earthquake, wars, and rumors of wars. Why? Because everybody warring with each other. Like Jeroboam and Rehoboam. They warred all the days of their life. It was just all they did. You're going to war. He said, I'm going to put enmity between your seed and her seed. Between the remnant, and he said the serpent seed and the woman's seed. And y'all going to fight. And you're going to bruise his head and he's going to bruise your heel. That's what's going to happen. Because of war. Not only that, war within yourself. Flesh and ruach. Fighting with each other. All the time. But you got to remember that you're only flesh though. That's the only way you're going to get through it. You're going to have to remember that you're only flesh. That's what makes war stop. We're all flesh. Then your compassion and your love comes in when you start to remember that everybody's flesh. And everybody's prone to do things over and over and over again. That's the only way you're going to make it. Because you're going to have to get that in your mind. That's the only way this compassion and gentleness and self-control going to get in. Because you're going to have to tell yourself, you're going to say, you're only flesh. And you're going to have to tell, they're only flesh. And you got to deal with it in a compassionate way. If you don't, you're going to find yourself in war. And it says, and their husbands shall perish of the famine. Because there ain't going to be no food. The water, the earth changes. It's supposed to be summer, it's supposed to be harvest, it's going to be winter. It's supposed to be winter, it's going to be summer. And the plant's going to lose all its yield, and everything's going to be all over the place, erratic. But guess what it tells you? Listen now to these things and understand them. Do you understand it? He said, they that understand it. He said, everybody's not going to understand this. O servants of Yahuwah, behold, the word of Yahuwah, receive it. Just like he told Ezra, he said, Nephash, receive wisdom and instruction. Do not disbelieve what Yahuwah says. Say what? There's going to be an earthquake. There's going to be a shaking. There's going to be some things that's going to change on this earth. That's going to shift whole climates. And people ain't going to be able to eat. There's going to be wars because people going to be fighting over food and fields and lentil fields in one country and come all the way to your country to get it. Right? There's going to be all types of stuff going on in the earth. He said, make sure you don't disbelieve this. And make sure you don't store up your treasures here on Shamayim on the earth. Because even though it may get to the point where it's peace and tranquility and the prices go down and everything seems like everything good, just understand. Make sure you have in the back in your mind, this ain't going to last forever. Make sure you put that in your heart. I say, settle it in your heart already. So you won't be, what's happening? I can't believe this. Oh my gosh. You're going to be panicking. You're going to lose control of your ruach, your self-control. You're going to forget all the things that Yahuwah already said. Right? And then you say, you know, man sound like that. I said, okay. Oh my gosh. Let something happen. A man going to turn into a wailing. He going to turn into something totally different. You're going to be like, what's wrong here? Hitting the ground. Right? Crying. But that's the whole point. It says, what? It says, do not disbelieve what Yahuwah says. Behold, the calamities draw near. Say what? And are not delayed. Say what? They come. He said, nah, they ain't coming. I said, man, you have no idea. He said, why do you think all this knowledge coming? He said, oh, so you going to all the books? He said, yeah, we can open some more books. He said, you're going to see some more stuff. He said, yeah, you got to. Because it's coming. He said, you better store it up. You better store it in your conscience and your mind, your other databases and everything else in your body. And whatever database you got to have externally. You better make sure you have it. Why? Because it's important. And it says right here, it says, and not delayed, just as a woman with a what? With a child. Remember I told you? It's just like the birthing process. That's why he said in pain, you're going to bring forth children. In pain, you're going to till the ground. You're going to eat plants, and you're going to eat what? The bread, lakam. But he said, I'm going to barak your bread and your water. If you do what I say. Because the Malaky going to keep you in the way. Beware of him. And get what it says. Let him who buy, it says, strangers in the earth. It says, I'm sorry. And it says, receive and do not disbelieve what I say. Behold, the calamities draw near and are not delayed. Just as a woman with a child in nine months, when the time of her delivery draws near, has great pains about her wound for 2 or 3 hours beforehand. And when the child comes forth from the womb, then there will not be a moment delay. So the calamities will not delay in coming forth upon the earth. He said, rejoice, O barren one. Sing a song, O barren one. Why would he say that? Because of the things that's getting ready to come on the earth. He said, because the things get ready to come on the earth. He said, there going to be many virgins and widows. All their husbands going to die. He's like, man. But Yahuwah said, in my abundant compassion, I'm going to gather all of you. But guess what it says? You know what it says? Her womb is what it says. So the calamities will not delay its coming forth upon the earth, and the world will groan, and pains will seize it on every side. He's getting ready to bring forth. Pain is getting ready, in pain you're going to bring forth children. It's getting ready to give birth. That's why he say, if you get rid of the feminine nature, you get rid of everything. You ain't gonna understand this. People saying, how you gonna understand it? That's why you say men with men. That stuff make you disbelieve this stuff. Women with women. This make you disbelieve this stuff. I hope y'all know. People saying, oh, that's why you think Yahuwah give them up. It ain't gonna happen. It's not. It make you disbelieve it. You'd be like Lot. You gotta ask a question about Lot's Lut's son-in-laws. You gotta ask the question, what kind of people they were? What y'all were doing? Malaky said, I'm gonna destroy the earth. Malaky told him not to look back, not to even stop. He said, I escaped to the hills. I can't. Oh, it's gonna die. Right? That's what's happening. That's what happens when things happen. He said, you'll turn into Lot. Please let me escape to this city. Okay, go that way. That's how it's gonna be. But that's all a part of what? Malaky, keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. For he will not pardon your transgressions. Don't look back. Matter of fact, don't even stop nowhere. For I can't do nothing until you out of it. You think about it, Malaky, he destroyed your children. He's like, what you? I say, what? What do you think the Malaky gonna get? Yeah, I wasn't supposed to kill that person, but I do it anyway. Even though I could. They can't do nothing until you get till you. If Yahuwah tell you to get out, he say, no, you gotta leave. And you can't delay it. And the Malaky can't do nothing until you go. I can't do nothing until you get out. But the Malaky, think about it, you're a royal family, and then the soldier be like, man, you know what? I messed up. I ended up touching one of your anointed ones. What do you think? What do you think Yahushua gonna do to that Malaky? Just like David killed that man, he said, so you wasn't afraid, like, to touch one of yours anointed ones? He said, send one of the young men and kill that man. What do you think the Malaky? You think the Malaky ain't afraid of Yahuwah? I know people thinking like he ain't afraid. I ain't afraid. I said, okay. They got more fear than human beings. They do. They got more fear than human beings, than the foolish ones. And they got way more power than you. So that means power without self-control is not power. But we're gonna get out of here. We're almost finished. And it says, before, when the child comes from the womb, there will be not a moment delay. So the calamities will not delay in the coming upon the earth, and the world will groan in pains on every side. Hear my word, O my people. Prepare for battle. And in the midst of the calamities, be like strangers on the earth. He said, man, just be like a stranger, like a pilgrim, like somebody just passing through. And let him that sells be like one who will flee. Let him who buys be like one who will lose. And let him who does business be like one who will not make profit. And let him that builds a house be like one who will not live in it. People don't want to live like that. He said, you got to be like you ain't even going to live in it. Let him who sows be like the one who will not reap. So also him who prunes the vines like one who will not gather grapes. Let them that marry like one who will not have no what? Who will have what? No children. Rejoice, O barren one. Thou that bearest not. He said, be like you have no children. He said, even if you bear one, he said, be like you have no children. Because if you know why, if you keep that mindset, you know what happens? If something happens, you gonna have to leave. Oh, man. But people have no idea. When this time, man, people have no idea. And then, that do not marry, it says, and them who do not marry, like those who are widowed. Because those who labor in vain. For the strangers shall gather their fruits, and plunder their goods, and overthrow their houses, and their children captive, take their children captive, and in captivity and famine will they beget children. Huh? In captivity and what? In famine will they beget children. They're going to be raped. Those who conduct business do it as it only be plundered. And it says, the more they adorn their cities, their houses, possessions, and their persons, the more angry I will be with them for their sin. You see what? What do you think? What do you think all this going to create? You see what they're getting ready to build to now in the world. What do you think they're going to do to you who are angry? He's like, you're going to make them more upset. Just the same way you give them grievous answers to Yahuwah, and you will be like, and you be lying, and then you don't get them soft answers. He'd be like, and then you want to start building something. You want to start making stuff. You like, yeah, I like when you make stuff. I'm gonna let you get as much as you can. Matter of fact, I'm gonna let you get so strong on your mouth. I'm gonna let you get so strong. You're gonna be so stout, and Yahuwah gonna make you that way. You're going to be boasting and saying all this stuff. He said, you know what? I'm going to wait till you get it all too. And that's how he works. It's only to humble you, right? It says, and the persons, the more angry I will be with them for their sins. Because they transgress his commandments, his Torah. Says Yahuwah, just as a respectable and virtuous woman, just as a respectable and virtuous woman, because you give soft answers. Because she got wisdom in her tongue in Proverbs 30. Abhors a harlot. Not today, though. You know what they do? They commend her. He's like, man, look at here. You know what you are? He said, I abhor. They abhor what? As a no. They're supposed to. But it's not a mutual hatred between the deceiver. You know, you got the life givers, which is the virtuous women, versus the deceivers. Nakashas versus the children, the women that give life versus the women who deceive. It's not like a mutual enmity. It ain't like that no more for some reason. You say, but it should be. The life givers versus the deceivers. But it said right here, abhor the harlot, so righteousness shall abhor iniquity. That's why you're supposed to hate it. He said, I hate iniquity. He said, Yahuwah save me from all iniquity because you hate it. You hate the works of the flesh. He said, I hate it. I hate it. You got to hate it. If you don't fear it, if you fear the flesh, it's going to rule you. Have you read in the book of Thomas? Was it the book of Philip? It's going to rule you. But here we go. We're going to finish. When she decks herself out, look what it says. It abhors iniquity. When she decks herself out and shall accuse her to her face. So righteousness shall abhor iniquity when she decks herself out and shall accuse her to her face. When he comes, who will defend him who searches out every sin on earth? How are you going to do it? He said, a virtuous woman, he said, when she see a harlot, she said, she tells her what? To her face. Maybe that's probably why there's so many more harlots than there are virtuous. Because he said, y'all ain't telling them to their face. He said, you scared. He said, the older women supposed to teach the younger women, but the older women ain't teaching the younger women no more. They partying with them. Party like a rock star. Party like, but they doing everything, right? And guess what? You know what happens after that? Yahuwah wrath just get more. He's getting more angrier and angrier and angrier. And you be like, man, what's going on? And his wrath is burning hot, and he ain't going to stop. Guess what? Verse 52. Therefore, do not be like her in her works. Huh? Isn't that what he told us to do? Don't do like them, the people of the land. He said, don't you do what they do. For behold, just in a little while, and iniquity will be removed from the earth, and righteousness will reign over us. Let no sinner say that he has not sinned. That's what people say. I ain't never did no wrong. Did Adam and Yahuwah lie when Yahuwah said, asked them a question? He told them the straight up truth about what they did. They ain't lie. Yahuwah, this is what happened. This is what we did. They confessed right there. They ain't no fools. But you know what we do? He's like, nah, I ain't sinned. You know what happens? He says, for Elohim will burn. You know what he says? Let no sinner say that he has not sinned. For Elohim will burn coals of fire on the head of him who says, I have not sinned before Elohim and his kabod. How you going to heat coals of fire? By his Malaky. Right, so this is the end part. This is the end part we're doing. Right, so this is the book of Romans. This is the book of Romans, chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verse 14. Romans chapter 12, verse 14. It says, Barak those who persecute you, and bless those who curse you. Why? Because they're giving off grievous words, wrath. They're stirring up wrath within you. They're giving grievous answers. It's stirring up wrath in you. They're not giving soft answers when you ask them things. Because, you're supposed to go to people and tell them their fault. He said, guess what? Barak those who persecute you. That's what Esau did. He persecuted your code because he hated them. He said, Barak them. He said, Barak them. How many people are going to do that? That's going to save you from the wrath to come. Barak those who barak you. And he says, and barak those who curse and do not curse them. Don't do it. Because you're going to be engaging and be stirring up wrath for you. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. That's why you need to cry. And you need to rejoice. Live in harmony, harmon with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Because if you get haughty, you're going to be like the rich man. When you got all that wealth, and you strong and stout, then Yahuwah will make you cast it to the ground. But he said, with the lowly, never be wise in your own sight. You know what I said? How you be wise in your own sight? When you lean to your own understanding. And in all your ways, you're not acknowledging Yahuwah, and then you forget what he did in the beginning, and you lose sight of these things. Right? And you forget how powerful he is. And get what it says. Repay no one evil for evil. Grievous words, stirs up wrath, Barak. Not a soft answer, Barak. Do not curse. And then what happens after that? Return one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. Barak. Bless. Pray for those who despitefully use you and those who persecute you. If possible, so far as it depends on you. It depends on you. Live peaceably with all. Because there's nothing greater than peace. I don't care what people say. There ain't nothing greater than peace, man. There's nothing greater than that. Shalom. That's what he said to the Malaky when he was the Malaky, destroying Malaky, stirring up the wrath of Yahuwah, and the winds and the waves on the sea. And they came to Yahusha, Master, you don't care that we're going to perish? And he came out, what y'all waking me up for? And he came out. And he said what? Shalom. Look at what it says. If possible, as far as in you, live peaceful with all. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of Yahuwah Elohim. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says Yahuwah of hosts. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. And if he is thirsty, give him something to drink. Why? He said, when do we see you hungry and thirsty and clothed and naked. He said, you done it to the least of them, you done it to me. He said, he keeps you in that mindset even with your enemies. And there's something. He said, man, you got to stay like that, regardless. And if he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For in doing so, say what? If your enemy hungry, feed him. Feed him with what? With bread. You know that Barak bread, you know that blessed bread you be having? You know that Barak, when he said, I'm going to rock your bread in your water. You know that Barak bread that we read about? If your enemy hungry, feed him that blessed bread. And if he thirsty, give him some of that Barak water that you got. For by doing so, you will heap coals of fire on his head. Why? Because you're not supposed to do that. Right? You just read that in the 4th book of Aydah. He said he going to heap coals of fire on their head. And you know what happened? Do not be overcome. Do not be overcome with raw evil. Because that's all Satan wants. He wants to overcome your mind with evil, with wrath, with anger, with bitterness and resentment. Then it opens the door for adultery and fornication. Then it opens the door for murder. Then it opens the door for homicides and spying. And he said, and then people turn into the Unabomber. Then they turn into Darth Vader. You know how people say? They turn into the evil person. They were good at first, but they say, man, you done turned, what happened to you? He's like, Satan overcome your mind. Now you done turned into a whole nother person. You be like, man, what happened to that guy? That woman used to be so loving and caring. He's like, man, she done been done wrong so bad. She forgot to say Barak and bless and give them some food and some hungry. If they hungry, give them coals of fire. Keep doing it. You got weary and well doing it. Satan like, they getting tired. I'm wearing them down. You getting tired. I'm wearing you down. You getting tired. I know you're getting tired of doing good and not revenging yourself. I know you're getting tired of not being angry. You got to be blessed people that do you wrong. I know you're getting tired. I'm getting tired. You're getting tired. And what? He get in your mind. And then eventually he take you over. And then once you go from there, then you turn into something even worse than what you were before. And then, in order for you to get yourself out of it, you're going to have to go in the sackcloth of ashes, but Satan's going to do as much as he possibly can to keep you from that state of mind. And you end up being in a war. Right? You're going to be in a war. You're going to be in a war, right? So this is the last couple things. This is the last couple things, and we'll finish right here. Right? This is the, I think it's Hebrews. You go to the book of Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13 verse 1. Romans chapter 13 verse 1. Romans chapter 13 verse 1. It says, let every person be subject to governing authorities, for there is no authority except from Yahu. From where? From Elohim. Because a higher official isn't a higher official, another above another higher official, and then Yahuwah says above all. He said, to be marvel not, the perversion of judgment. No, just understand, I seen it. Yahuwah like, I seen all that stuff. All that partiality and covering up people. And he said, you know what? I seen it all. Don't worry about it. You see what such and such did? He said that. Don't worry about it. Barak, bless. Right? Barak. They hungry, give them food, clothe them naked, keep doing good. Don't worry about it. For there is the authority except Elohim, and those that exist have been instituted by Elohim. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what Elohim has appointed. He's like, why he did it for? And you know what he did it for? It's for a reason. And those who resist will incur judgment. Why is he doing that for? For rulers are not a terror to good conduct. Now you see why you can't lie. You say, what? So why do you think if you lie in one of these judgment halls today and you go get arrested and you go lie, what do you think going to happen to you? And they find out. They call you on the phone, something such and such and such and such and such and such and such, and you lie. You know what they're going to be thinking? This person is a liar. He's hiding some more stuff, right? You know what happens after that? You're going to get judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to evil. That's why we got to be honest. He said you got to be honest in everything you do. Even if you owe things, you just got to be honest. You be like, man, look here. You just got to be honest in everything you do. You got to be honest, and even when somebody do something, you got to be honest in everything. It doesn't matter how it may look, or how people may look at you. It doesn't matter. You got to be honest in everything. When you go to the bank, fill out an application. When you go here, you go there. You just got to be honest, right? It says, would you have no fear for those who, would you have no fear for the one who is in authority? Then do what is good. See, that's the only point. Why do you think people fear the authorities that you see in all these different places in the world? Because they be doing evil stuff. Yahuwah children in y'all world. Yahuwah rules over these people. So he's like, yeah, I know if you touch me, I already know what's gonna happen to you. You wouldn't be smart enough to do that. That wouldn't be a smart thing to do. Even the Malaky understand that. Yahuwah, remember we read in the book of Psalms, he said, I judge my people, not you. Don't touch my people. Right? So you gotta think about that. But it said right here, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peace. All right, so, sorry, here we go. Going to verse. That's 13 and 3. For the rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad, evil. Would you have no fear for the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is Elohim's servant for your good. He's what? He's Aydah in the garden. He Adam. Who do you think that was walking in the garden to execute judgment on Adam and Kuh? That was Yahuwah's servant. That was his servant. That was Yahushua Mashiach himself. Because he was in the garden. When the woman came to the garden, he said, I supposing he seen the garden. And then he meet her in the garden. He was actually buried in the garden for 3 days and 3 nights. And he got up from the earth. And he was in the garden. And amazingly, the woman came. He said, don't touch me. And then what he told the woman in the garden? Neither shall you touch it, lest you die. Right? For he is Elohim's servant. But if you do wrong, be afraid. And what Adam, Yahuwah, we heard you coming in the garden. We heard you and we hid ourselves. He said we was afraid. Then when he ain't lie either. So he telling you don't lie. Be afraid. I ain't afraid. I ain't scared. You know, you say, I ain't never scared, right? I say, okay. You find yourself in a situation, you say, be afraid. He said, I ain't afraid. He said, be afraid. For he does not bear the sword in vain. Why do you think the Malaky to keep the way of the tree alive? He said, I unsheathed my sword and I ain't sheathing it again. He said, I ain't sheathing it again. He don't bear the sword in vain, for he is the servant of Elohim, an avenger who carries out Yahuwah's wrath on the wrongdoer. How he gonna do it? By his sword, by his word. A sword is sharpened for the slaughter. It flashed like lightning. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid Yahuwah's wrath. Say what? What type of answer you giving back? Oh, so you saying, oh, you lied. So that's gonna be more wrath. And then you're going to get punished for it. So you might well tell the truth and get punished for it, and tell the lie and get punished for it, and then you add 2 sins. You know, you say that's 2 sins. 2 things you did, and therefore, boom, 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 boom. For therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid Yahuwah's wrath, but also for the sake of your conscience, for your mind, for your subconscious. You know how you have your in-depth mind, all the way down to your inner being? For because of this, you also pay taxes. Say what? For because of this, you also pay taxes. For the authorities you pay tax, for the authorities are ministers of Elohim, attending to the very thing, this very thing. He said, you pay what? Pay to all what is owed to them. It says taxes and whom taxes are owed, revenue and whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. Why would he say that? Why would he say taxes? Right? Romans 13:7. Right? Because you say, so what? You say, what he talking about? Right? So let's see what he's saying. Romans 13:7. Actually, yeah. Romans 13:7. Right. So this is the book. Romans 13:7. It says tribute, right? It says, therefore, all your dues, they say tribute, that word for tribute is phoros. Phoros in Greek. It means a tax, an individual assessment of a person's property, whereas usually a general toll, a good or travel, a load. Right? Well, so why would he say that? It says taxes whom taxes, tribute whom tribute, right? All that's a part of it. But it says also revenue is owed. You say, why would he say all of that? It says custom, so you got tribute and you have custom or telos. That word for custom is telos. It says, what does it say? Set out to point, it says to the point and aimed at as a limit that is by the conclusion of an act or state. So he's literally saying, after you received your judgment, after you received your sentence, it says, and amazing, they do that today. You see people do this. You see people do this. When they went to Aydah, when a woman pretended to be another woman, she brought something to him, and she brought it to him to get the verdict on if her son of Jeroboam was going to live or not. He said, "Why are you pretending to be a woman, another woman? I know who you the wife of Jeroboam." He said, "I already know." He said, "I already know you the wife of Jeroboam, but she brought something too." And he said, "This is your verdict, your son. Will he recover? Will he recover? Will he recover?" And he said, "You know the verdict to that." And then she left what she had brought him to. And he says, "Pay to all what is owed. Tribute to tribute, revenue to revenue, respect to whom respect is owed, and honor to whom honor is owed." Why? Because the word for honor is to me. It means money paid, dignity, precious or some price. Right? That's what they did. They always brought something. But you know, when that woman, they brought it to Aydah, he said, "Man, go wash yourself in the Yarden 7 times." You know, he said, wash yourself in there 7 times. "Is there not another river?" And he said, "There you go." And then he tried to give him all the stuff. He's like, "Now, is there a time to get wealth right now? It ain't no time to be collecting no money." But that servant boy, he went back and get that money though. He lied too to get it. He did. Ain't no time to be gathering no gain. Right? But all this is all part of it. But at the same time, he said he the messenger of Yahuwah, right? But all this is all part of it, right? Going to last couple of things, and we're finished, right? Last couple of things, right? All right, so this is Dead Sea Scrolls, column 4Q257. "These are the paths in the world that enlighten the heart of Adam, man, human being. Straight in front of them, all the paths of true justice. Establish in their heart respect for the precepts of Elohim and the Ruach of meekness." Isn't that we just read in Romans? He said respect. To whom respect? No respect. He said respect the precepts of Yahuwah Elohim. Don't forget that. He says And the ruach of meekness. Why? Why we say meekness? Don't give grievous answers. And don't stir up wrath. Give soft answers. Of patience and generous compassion, eternal goodness and intelligence, understanding and potent wisdom, which trusts in all of these of Elohim, depends on his abundant mercy. Why? Because once you get to that point, he said, you will be my helper again. Be my helper again. A ruach of knowledge of all the plans of action, and enthusiasm, decrees of justice, and set apart plans with firm purpose, of generous compassion with all the sons of truth, of magnificent purity, which detests all unclean idols. He said, let not the names of other gods be heard out of your mouth. He said, I'm Yahuwah, your husband. And people say, why do marriages fail? He said, such and such. He started talking about other people. He like, man, you just literally just upset me. That's like grievous words and stir up anger and wrath, right? And it says right here, generous compassion, all the sons of truth, of magnificent purity, and test all unclean idols, of a careful behavior and wisdom concerning everything. Because how come wisdom? Barak is who found it. It's better than silver and gold if you who lay hold on it. Matter of fact, wisdom preserves the life. Wisdom preserves the life. Hakma preserves the life. Barak is he who found it. But it said right here, concerning everything, a concealment concerning the truth of the mysteries of the knowledge. These are the foundations of the Ruach, the spirits of the sons of truth in the world, and the reward of those who walk in it will be healing. Plentiful peace. Ain't nothing greater than peace. Think about it, you get soft answers and Barak and bless those who curse you and do evil, don't return evil for evil. Giving to those who are hungry and thirsty. He said, ain't nothing greater than peace. Plentiful peace and long life. You're going to extend your life. Fruitful offspring with an everlasting blessing, Barak, eternal enjoyment with endless life, and a crown of kabod with majestic raiment and eternal life. That's what we get in return. We get that in return. However, the ruach of deceit belongs greed. He said, the ruach of deceit belongs greed. And you know what happens after that? You know what happens when you have a deceit, deceit in your heart? Right, this is the book of Psalms. I think it's, this is what happens when you have deceit in your tongue. This is Psalms 109 and 2. 109 and 1. Be not silent, O Elohim, of my praise, for wicked and deceitful mouths are opened against me, speaking against me with lying tongues. That's how they get their greed. That's how you think they get their money. They're going to lie. That's how they're going to get it. Do you think they're going to tell the truth? Yeah, this right here is this and this and this and this is that. And they're gonna swindle you and it's going to be a scam. You know what happens after the scam? When you get scammed, what's going to happen? You're going to Barak. You're going to give back a grievous. You're going to give back a soft answer. You're going to start speaking kindly. You're still going to give them bread to eat and water. You're going to be trying to take the people out. You're scam. That's why he said you got to suffer loss. Because if you don't, they're going to take away your thoughts. But here we go. This is Psalms 52 and 1. Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? Psalms 52 and 1. You, O rich man, with much possessions. Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? The steadfast love of Yahuwah endureth all the day. Isn't that what he do for correction and love? He sends these plagues and stuff. These things that we see. Your tongue plots destruction. Like a razor, you worker of deceit. What you think these people doing? He said they work in deceit. You love evil more than good. And that's why he said don't return evil for evil. He said, how are you going to overcome evil? You overcome evil with good. You're going to have a deceitful tongue. That's why he tells us to Barak, bless, give him something to They hungry, thirsty, give them food, right? Always do good. Why? Because then you will love evil more than good. You won't be like these deceitful people. And you'll lose your peace. And that's all they're trying to do. That's why they come at. That's why they say things. That's why people go on YouTube, Instagram, X, make YouTube videos about you, say things about you ain't true, do all these things. Why? Because they spread rumors and lies. All these are a part of disturbing your peace. Create stuff, spy on you, do things. They just trying to disturb your peace because they know you found it. Because they're deceit. And they got their greed. They're full of greed. Because they want to destroy you. It says you love evil more than good and lying more than speaking what is right. Now, why do you think about Adam and Eve was like, hey, this is what we did. They were speaking what was right. They knew they were lying. They knew they did wrong. They made sure. Then they ain't lie either. They ain't give no grievous words back and stir up wrath. They didn't lie with their tongue. They gave soft answers. But guess what happened? You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. That's all they want. They nakash. Their whole life and work is to devour people. A kukash. Like Satan that enticed David to transgress the Torah. All that is part of it. But Elohim will break you down forever. You know what happened after that? Now you see why he said, rocks fall on us and hide us from him who sits on the face of the throne. That's what's going to happen. That's what happened to a man and a woman when they break covenant. When you break Berith covenant, a marriage covenant, and you put your whole name on it, that's what's going to happen to you. Yahuwah will break you down to the ground. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. When you start messing up people's family, you commit adultery, fornication, man, he said, you got to practice deceit in order to do that. But Elohim will break you down forever and will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. The righteous shall see it and fear. Well, you say, man, look at here. And shall laugh at him, saying, see, the man who did not make Yahuwah his refuge. He said, woo. He said, you got to make Yahuwah your refuge. But trusted in the abundance of his riches. O deceitful tongue of greed. Oh, you swindler, you extortioner. That's what happens. And sought refuge in his own destruction. But guess what he said? But I am like a green olive tree. And then when he said he's going to make the olive tree grow back. Remember you just read that in the fourth book of Aydah? He said, man, I'm going to make the olive tree. He said, ain't going to be a lot of people though. Your olive orchards, you're supposed to leave for the poor too. In the 7th month of your release. He said, but I was like a green olive in the house of Yahuwah. I trusted in the steadfast love of Yahuwah forever and ever, because he brought you to safety out of Mizraim. I will thank Yahuwah forever because you have done it. Who have done it? You have done it. And I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the righteous, godly, right? So going back to column, Dead Sea Scrolls, column 6, 4Q 257. However, the ruach of deceit belongs greed, O devouring tongue. Sluggishness in the service of judgment, wickedness, falsehood, liar, pride, haughtiness of heart. That's why he told us not to be. Because haughtiness, that's a nom. He said a virtuous woman is at enmity with that harlot. Hardness of heart, dishonesty. Why do you think Adam and Eve was not doing that? They ain't had no deceit in their heart. That's why they told the truth. That's why they poured out their heart toward Yahuwah what really happened. They didn't lie. That's why they had no deceit. Trickery, cruelty, much insecurity, impatience, much foolishness, impudent enthusiasm for the appalling acts that performed in a lustful passion, filthy past in the service of impurity, blasphemous tongue, blindness of eyes, hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck. And he said you're supposed to adorn wisdom on your neck, on your throat, on your throat. But people try to make it something else with the throat. He said, but you got to have hukmah on your throat. Yahuwah's wisdom. He said these commandments, he said in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4, he said this is your wisdom and understanding in the sight of the nations. It's supposed to be on your throat. Stiffness of neck. And you say, why my neck stiff? Because your hukmah, wisdom, is not on your neck. It's not on your throat. Hardness of hearing, hardness of heart. In order to walk in the paths of darkness and evil cunning. He said you turn into evil. The evil don't overcome you. It done took you over. All them grievous words and that wrath is stored up in you. All them non-soft answers you got, and all that wrath, Satan was using them to store it, to sow it inside of you, and now you lost control. And think about your life from birth to present. And all the people who didn't give you soft answer back, and those who gave you grievous words, and wrath and anger that's stored up in you from all those people from birth to present up until this point. That's where it comes from. And you say, how do we know that? Right, so this is the book of, this is why he said that. This is why he said this, right? And people say, why he said this? This is why he said this. This is Ephesians chapter 6 and 1. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Yahuwah, for this is right. Why? Because we obey our father and mother, Yahuwah Elohim. Honor your father and your mother, for this is the first commandment with promise. Right? Honor your father and your mother. They put in there, this is commandment, but it says, honor your father and your mother. But we know that why it's the father and mother. For this is the first commandment with promise, that it may go well with you, that you may live long in the land. Remember he said he's going to send it for correction. He sent the storm, earthquakes, famines, pestilence, earthquakes for correction in the book of Job, for love, and for the land. Why do you think Ayah's son was getting torn up by the whirlwinds? He said when the Malaky came, and he said, man, a storm came and killed all the children. Right? And the servants came. Why do you think he did that? You think that he just did that to his children because he just wanted to test. No, Satan knew he had something on it. He had something on them the terrible kids that Ayah would pray for every single day. I mean, he would pray for them, and he knew that maybe they cursed him in their heart, and they knew they were storing up wrath. And guess what he did? He sent a whirlwind, and people said that ain't gonna happen. I said, okay. But he sent that for correction. Why do you think he was correcting Ayah? But guess what I want? Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. How do you do that? How do you provoke Yahuwah to anger? Not a soft answer. Not a soft answer. Grievous words stir up wrath. Grievous words and not a soft answer stir up inside of your children. So you think about from birth to present, how many times this happened to you. And by doing that, it literally provokes anger and wrath. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instructions of Yahuwah with soft answers, without grievous words. Why? Because those seeds remain. Because you can remember. Go in your mind and remember all the times. You can. Go back. Amazing, you can remember all of it too. But when Yahuwah spoke, it was always with when the Father Yahuwah speaks, he always speaks with a what? A soft answer. That's what he do. Right, so going back to that column, Dead Sea Scrolls column 6, 4Q57. Stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the path of darkness and evil cunning. Right? Why? And the visitation of those who walk in it will be abundance affliction of the Malaky of destruction for eternal damnation and the scorching wrath of the Elohim that revenges. Right? He said, leave all the vengeance up to Yahuwah. Matter of fact, in the way he sent it on the Turah, he said, I sent the Malaky of destruction. He said, man, we saw it too. We saw the Malaky of destruction. But he said, I'm going to barak your bread and your water, though. Those who fear my name. He said, if you understand it. He said, in the fourth book of Aydah, he said, please don't forget what the Malaky has said. He said, don't even forget it. Make sure you store this up in your mind. For it is near. And you say, why? Because he needs you to understand that. And get what it says. For permanent terror and shame, without end, with humiliation of destruction of the fire of the dark regions. Right? That's a humiliation. Why do you think he humiliates people who gets all high and lofty and haughty? He takes you down to the ground. Why? He has to. That's the only way he's going to get you back. He said, why do we always go from a high and you get things and then you go to a low and you go back to a high or you go to a low? Why? Because it's all a part of his punishment. That you go high and you get low and he'll punish you for correction, for love, and then also for his land, which is your mind. Because the field is the earth. He said, do not feel Shaman in earth? I feel the earth with seed. As a matter of fact, I feel your mind with seed too. And it said right here, for permanent terror and shame without end, the humiliation, the destruction of the dark regions, all the ages of their generations, they shall spend in bitter weeping and harsh evils in the abyss of the darkness until destruction, without there being a remnant or survivor for them. We just read in the fourth book of Aydah how many people are going to be around. But that's all a part of his judgment. But Yahuwah don't stay angry always. He's like, man, I turn my face from you, but I show compassion to you. See, he got wrath, but then he ain't going to stay always like that. Right? Continual hatred, continual wrath. Right? He doesn't do that. It's all of Yuchanan 2:24 to 28. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. Right? We just talked about Adam and Kuah. Why? Because they didn't lie. When the judgment came, they poured out their heart toward Yahuwah. And he said, why would he say pour out your heart? Because that's the only way you're going to get out. He said, pour out your heart, right? And he said, why would he say that, right? This Psalm, Tahlim 139. Psalms, I think it is 139, 140. Yeah, I think it's Psalms 139 and 1. Go to Psalms 139. Yeah, Psalms 139, I believe. If I believe it. Yeah, Psalms 139. Psalms 139 and 1. Oh, Yahuwah, search me and know. He said, Yahuwah have searched me and known me. He said, I know you. How do you think he's going to search you? By his debar. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. And what's you supposed to have on your throat? Wisdom and knowledge and understanding, right? He said, speak these words while you sit in the house, walk by the way when you lie down and rise up. He said, I know when you rise up. You know when I rise up. And you know when I lay down. You discern my thoughts from afar. So when he said, we heard your sound coming in the cool of the day. And he said, Yahuwah discerning their thoughts from afar. He's like, Adam is hiding himself. Kuah is hiding himself. Satan, Nakash did his job. They're hiding, and I'm almost there. Adam, where are you? He already know. You search out my past and my lying down, and you are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, Yahuwah knows it all together. He said, how he, man, that's all he, why do you think he didn't say, Kuah, you a liar. Adam, you a liar. He already knew he was telling the truth. So that's why he went straight to Satan. Because you have done this, he didn't even ask him. He didn't even ask him. He already said, I already know you did. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. You know, when you will lay a hand on you, it's like, man, you got me locked up in here. That's why sometimes it's best to just go through your punishment. You know, some people want to get out. He's like, no, it's just better to just go through your punishment. Because it's there to make you better. There's no point in running from it. Get what he says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. That's why he's telling you all this stuff. He's like, man. He said, you know it before I said it. He said, yeah. If I ascend to Shamayim, you there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take up the wings of the morning, dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. He's like, man, you can hide. You can't hide from him. Even when you go to the pit. If I say, so you think you're going to go to the pit, it's like the man with Abraham. Yeah, you know, if I leave from here, you know, I'll be able to go tell my brothers. You already know your thoughts. And he thought he was going to get away with it. He was like, I already know this dude. This dude is wicked. Don't worry about it. Right? And he says, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely darkness shall cover me, the light about me will be night. The light about me will be night. Even darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, and the darkness is as light with you. What did he say? Verse 13. Because you know when he's searching? For you formed my inward parts. He's searching your inward parts. Your mind, your kidneys, your liver, your intestines, your stomach, your hands and your feet. He's seeing where you went. I see your feet, though. Oh, I see your feet. I'm judging your feet. Where you was at? Man, I was over here, such and such. But your feet, I'm looking at your feet. Your feet, look you got something else on your feet. Well, you lying. Or I'm looking at your hands, looking at your thoughts, your eyes, your ears. What you been looking at? I see what you've been looking at. What you doing? I'm seeing what you're thinking. I already know what you're thinking. I know how you think. I know you're only flesh. Do you know you're only flesh? Do you know your brother and your sister? You know your husband and your wife only flesh? You know your children is only flesh? I know. For you formed my inward parts and knit me together in my mother's womb. I told you, it's like your seed are going to be at enmity with the Nakash seed. You knit me together in your mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul, I know it very well. Why? Because if somebody educates you on your nefesh, then guess what happens? Then now you know it very well. I'm only flesh. You know who you are. When I was being made in secret, in Matthew chapter 6, what did he say do in secret? Your alms, your prayers, everything in secret. How do you think he's making you? Everybody need to know. You know, nobody really need to know what you were making. When I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of earth, your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them. So what do you think he writing? Why do you think he told you to do all your stuff in secret? He said they received a reward. I ain't writing none of that stuff down. They be thinking that he writing on here. I ain't wrote none of that stuff down. He ain't wrote none of that stuff down. He said you like to be seen and pray and be seen. You like to do your own before others, that others may see your stuff. He said I ain't written none of that stuff down. He said your eyes saw my unformed substance. And what they say, what did the women do to Yahushua when they came to him? They ministered to him over their substance. Isn't that what they did? Your eyes saw my unformed substance, in your book were written, every one of them. The days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. He said, before I was doing it so everybody could see me, doing all this stuff. I was doing everything in that manner. But now he's like, yeah, there was none of them written in there until I started doing it the correct way, because before you didn't know. Verse 17, how precious to me are your thoughts, O Elohim. How vast is the sum of them, right? All that's a part of it. Right? But that's the whole point. But the whole point of this was, right, so this is the book of Joel chapter 2, verse 28. Joel chapter 2, we almost finished. Joel chapter 2, verse 28. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my ruach on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. Even on the male and female servants, in those days I will pour out my ruach, and I will show wonders in the Shamayim in the earth, and the blood and fire and columns of smoke. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon to blood, before the great and awesome day of Yahuwah comes. And it shall come to pass that everyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah will be saved. He said, it's going to be saved. So if Yahuwah pours out his heart, he pours out his ruach on you. Remember, all Adam and Qahalath knew was a little bit they knew. And they poured all their lies out. They poured all their truth out of what they did. Regardless. Because when Yahuwah pours out on you, he said, you got to pour out all the things you've done wrong. Verse 25. All of you can now 24 to 25. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you, and what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise he has made to us. Eternal life, the Father and the Son, the Ab and the Ben, the life of the house, the strength of the house. The Abin, this stone. That's from the beginning. Because of Adam and Qahalath, you see how they operated when it came to judgment. And you think they deviated from their punishment? Nope. Because Satan pursued them even after. Verse 26, I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. The seed of Nakash versus the seed of the life givers. They're trying to deceive you. Why? But the anointing you receive from him abides in you. It abides in Adam. Every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest the day you eat of it, you shall die. Move. It already is in you. He said the seed is already in you. And you have no need that anyone should teach you. He said, you don't need Nakash. Nakash going to try to teach you something. He's like, man, I don't need Nakash. Nakash, just leave me alone, Nakash. I already know what you're trying to do, Nakash. I don't need you to tell me nothing. I already, Malaky, he said, negate him. He said, beware of him and obey his voice. I already know. Yahuwah already told us. So he like, I don't need to say it. I already know you, Nakash. That's all you got to know. Let no other words of other gods be written out of your mouth. I already know you, Nakash. He said, you saying other stuff out of your mouth. I already know you. I already know you, Nakash. It's not that hard. But the anointing teaches you about everything and it's true. Everything, about everything, and it's true and no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him, once you understand it. He said, abide in him. You could be strong in these type riches. But in the other riches, he said, rejoice in your humiliation. Think on poverty. And now, little children, if you don't humble yourself like a child, you'll never enter the Malaky. Abide in him, so that when he appears, you may have confidence and not shrink from him in shame at his coming. How you know you're going to shrink from him in his shame? Who was the person that shrunk in shame? Right? Because this is 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 1 Samuel, Allah Shamuel 18:14. 1 Samuel 18 and 12. 1 Samuel 18 and 12. He said, when he appears, we won't shrink of him in shame at his coming. This is Allah Shamuel 18 and 12. Saul was afraid of David because of David, because Yahuwah was with him, but had departed from Saul. So Saul removed from him his presence and made him a commander of 1,000, because he was afraid. And he went out and came in before the people. And David had success in all his undertakings, for Yahuwah was with him. He said, as rain and snow come down from Shamayim, so that the barbie goes out of my mouth. It should accomplish what he is sent to do. It should succeed in the thing which I sent it. It's going to have success. He said, you meditate on the bar, you may not, you will have much success. In the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9. This book of the law shall not depart of your mouth. You go with verse 15. And when Saul saw that he had great success, he stood in fearful awe. Even after he tried to get him out of his place, he still prospered. When Saul saw that he had great success, he stood in fearful awe of him. He stood in fearful awe of him. So Allah Shamuel 18 and 15. You almost finished. 1 Samuel 18 and 15. 1 Samuel, that word for awe. 1 Samuel. What's it? 1 Samuel 18, 15. 1 Samuel 18, 15. Get there. What is it? Yeah. 1 Samuel 18, 15. That word for awe. It says, when Saul saw that he behaved, right, he behaved himself very wisely, right, he was afraid of him. That word for afraid, that word for awe is gore. He was gore. It means properly to turn aside from the road. That's what we're going to do when Yahushua come back here, because he had great success. Yahushua had succeeded. Death is swallowed in victory. But when he come back, you already see he had great success. So guess what happened? You won't shrink at him at his coming, because when he come back, this is what you're going to do. You're going to turn aside from the road. It says the gore means the lodging. It means other purpose. That is to sojourn, to be a get, also to shrink. It means to shrink in fear. As in a strange place, to gather or for hostility. As afraid, which means that you're going to shrink in shame at his coming. You ever seen a snake coil back? You ever seen a rattlesnake coil back? It go back and they'll look at you, and then what is it waiting for? It's to snatch at you. It's going to be hostile. He said, you're going to be hostile when he come back, ain't you? You're going to shrink at his coming. So you're going to see, he already had all the success. You see all the success he had, you be like, man, there he go. Let me get out of the way. You're going to run from him. You're going to hide from him. And that's the whole point. Verse 28, and now, little children, abide in him. Just abide in him. Abide in the good success. Meditate on the bar of human night, and you'll have good success. Just abide in him. Cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. Just abide in him. Be in him. Why? So that you, when he appears, you may have confidence. That's what Saul didn't have anymore. Confidence. And not shrink from him in shame at his coming. He coming. He said he coming. Right? He coming. Right? So we look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach. look at a lot of life, we look at the understanding of Yahushua Mashiach, and we look at his understanding, and not our own. We see not to give grievous words, not even to take out of, he said, the wrath and things that people provoke onto, or the anger, but to give them food and hungry, and they hungry, thirsty, give them something to drink. That blessed, that barak, bread and water that you have. Matter of fact, in doing so, you heap coals of fire on their head. Knowing that we should not, he say, return evil for evil, but to overcome evil with good. And by overcoming evil with good, then Satan won't overcome you. And you won't turn into the darkness. And you won't turn into that person who loses self-control. And you won't be a city without walls. And you will lose, he said, you will be able to control yourself. You'll lose control. So we look at ourselves, look at our inward man, look at our inward being. And he said, when the year of release comes, we release. But we also leave things for the stranger and the animals that they eat in the field, that they may be able to gather in for themselves in abundance, from the orchards and the olives and the vineyards, that we may not walk in our own imagination, our own thoughts, knowing that the destruction is impending, and it is coming, but to not allow it to leave our mind in the back of our mind and store up a place for it, to know when the time comes, one needs to be prepared in their inward man and inward being, both male and female, to walk in abundance in the life that Yahuwah has given. So we live in this world, we are not of it. But as long as we live in the world, he said you must be subject to things and powers and authorities, and even things that are here. Knowing that when these things happen, he said you need to store up these things in your heart, in your mind. But he said, behold, he sent him a lot to keep you in the way. He said, beware of him and obey his voice, unless you decide to look back. As a matter of fact, you'll decide to stop after you leave. For all these are a part of our life, and one must walk, even as Yahushua walked. For even he says, in the day of your need, he said, I support you, I helped you. Because we all needed help. If you don't never need no help in your life, he said you're going to eventually need some help. And by him helping you, make sure you don't forget that he helped you. He said, make sure you sing a song too. He said, where my praise at? Because that's what you want to do. Because when he helps you, you need to sing praise. You pay him what is due to him. So we look at ourselves, we look at our inward being, and look at our inward thoughts. We do not walk in the ways of deceit, and the Malaky of destruction overtake our heart and our mind. We walk in the way of peace. For there's nothing greater than peace, and there's nothing greater than love. And most of all, there's nothing greater than correction. For Yahuwah loves who he corrects. And he loves you with an everlasting love that will never fade away. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth.